The tape. We do a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play. We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape. Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
The tape.
UGA game day, boy, we ball out. Pull up, put the whole conference in the doghouse. Leave them 6 feet, see me on the win streak. All-star status, go coach, and the bench deep. Right. Offense on 10, how we run it? Your best ain't nothing, we gon' send them boys punting. Yeah. Black and red, got them dead on arrival. Defense hunker down for the tie. Hey, you don't want it with the dogs. Film guy on it, you don't want it with my dog. Break it down, play by play, that's the day-to-day. They know we ain't come to play, boy, it's UGA. Kirby smart, I cannot play the fool. Back to back, we did not come to lose. Back to back, like we got something to prove. Pay your dues, dog nation on the move. What's up?
We do a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play, we ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape. The tape.
We ain't gonna play, we ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play, we ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Shut up. Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play, we ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The
Shut
tape.
up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
Shut up. The tape.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You like that? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the Film Guy Network on a fabulous Monday evening. I gotta say, boys, it felt like for the first time all offseason, probably for the first time since January, the national limelight and the national attention was around college football for the first time in like 3 months, I felt like. And it was a combination of a lot of things. A lot of things that we're going to talk about tonight. It was a combination of spring games, but I think most notably, it was obviously the Nico story out of Tennessee, which obviously we are going to talk about tonight. But we got a loaded show for you guys tonight. If the opening feels a little sporadic, I have to say it's because my printer, like the rest of my employees, seems to just decide when and if it wants to work. So tonight, a non-printer working night, but J. Will has returned to the stage and is active tonight. No longer on the IR, so he is available tonight. And of course, Kirby's
How'd I get brought down in that?
I mean, you're just guilty by association. You sit next to the I take a cruise guy, and you get labeled I don't work guy. So there's that. All right, so we got a bunch of sporadic participation tonight, most notably from the printer. All right, but at least we got J. Will back in the studio tonight, so we're glad to have that. But like I said, we're going to give you our spring game reactions. We each took 2 spring games. I took 3 because I couldn't just do 2, so I did 3 today. The boys did 2 a piece. I gave them a project. Hey, go learn everything you can about this non-televised spring game and bring it to the audience tonight. So we got 6 spring games. We're going to recap 7 spring games that we're going to recap for you guys tonight. But let's not bury the lead, right? We can't bury the lead tonight. This Nico Iamaleava. This Nico Iamaleava story is obviously the biggest talking point we've had all offseason. For Christ's sakes, I think ESPN's First Take did a segment on this one today. So obviously we have to talk about it. So here's what I'm going to do tonight. I am going to address this Nico story as if you've been Patrick Starr in this bitch for like the last 7 months. All right. As if you've been living under a rock. All right. In Bikini Bottom, not studying any news, notes, or anything. And I'm going to give you everything I know about this situation dating back 6-7 months. Okay. So here we go. I think as I've mentioned multiple times rather on this show. All right. This didn't start this past week. This didn't start at Tennessee with regards to Nico maybe being unhappy with his current contract or Nico's representation, maybe perhaps shopping him around the rest of the world of college football. Based off my sourcing and based off what we told you on this network last week, we were under the impressions this nonsense started in December. Okay, so in December, per my sourcing, all right, they were out here not only gauging the market, seeing what other football programs might be willing to pay Nico, but they were also forcing demands on Tennessee in December in the middle of the first portal window. So you have to imagine, Tennessee is preparing for their first ever college football playoff game. Meanwhile, their quarterback's coming in there saying, A, I need a raise. B, if y'all don't go make additions on this offensive line, I'm up out of here. So what do? They give him the impending raise in December, keep him out of the portal, while also going out and adding 2 offensive linemen, one from Notre Dame, one from Arizona, in the transfer portal this offseason as well. Albeit, meanwhile, Mike Matthews and Boo Carter, 2 of their most highly touted young freshmen from last year, are looking around talking about, hey, if the quarterback's getting a raise, not only I'm getting a raise, but if the quarterback leaves, I might be leaving too. This all happened in December. So that they're scattering in the midst of a preparation for Ohio State to try to keep their roster intact. All right. And doing so with raises and all that good stuff. So they keep him from going into the December portal window. And then the spring window comes open, right? He goes through all 14 spring practices with the University of Tennessee. And then all of a sudden it's representation agents, dad, Nico, going into Tennessee's offices and saying, hey, by the way, I'm getting a raise up to $4 million. And if you don't, well, guess what? I'm going to enter the portal. And at that point, finally, Tennessee was like, well, we're in a standstill, son. We can negotiate, maybe give you a raise, but I'm not going to $4 million. That's insane. You're not a $4 million player. And then we have Friday's holdout. And then as soon as the holdout happens Friday and Nico doesn't show up for practice, Josh Heupel does what any sane head football coach does. And he says, guess what? We ain't doing that here. We are not going to be held hostage by our starting quarterback. If you want to skip practice, you can skip the whole offseason thing and you can go ahead and skip your way on into the portal. We are moving on. And that was the announcement that came out Saturday. Now, that is the full rundown of all of these things that have happened in Tennessee, okay, in the last 5 months, 6 months. Now, this could go into a variety of subsections or subcategories with regards to discussions. I think I want to start with this one. Thank God somebody said, F you, you can walk. Finally, somebody had a talented football player walk into their office with a loaded gun and say, if you don't pay me, I'm leaving. And they said, you know what? I would rather go 8-5 next year with Jake Merklinger or 8-4 next year with whoever I can get up out of the portal than be held hostage by you, sir, who I've already gave a record-breaking deal out of high school. And, by the way, gave you a raise in December, and now here you are again. I'm not doing it. Nobody's bigger than the power T. I'm glad somebody finally stood up in the form of Josh Heupel and was like, you know what? I've had enough of this shit. You can pack your bags.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that it has to be a 19-year-old kid's image taking the fall for it, because let's be honest, if you think he was the one pulling the strings in this whole ordeal, you're wrong. But it's something that we all agreed needed to happen. You had to set a precedent that it's not okay to just walk in and hold these teams hostage. And the way the NCAA is set up right now, and the way the entire organization is set up, is it really makes the only people with power, it gives the coaches the only ones who have power. The NCAA can't do anything about this. The coaches basically have to call the bluff and stop the greed from happening, which credit Josh Heupel for doing, because otherwise you might be, this is not the only time this is going to occur.
I mean, this is a sport, and this is sports across the board of you are paid based on the production that you produce on the football field. And now that's one thing you can say about them paying what they did for him coming out of high school. But at least there was some production in high school that kind of backed it up. There's this 5-star quarterback, one of the best players in the country. But what you did last year did not correlate to earning $4 million. I mean, that doesn't happen across any sport at the professional level, college football. So yes, I agree with you.
I keep hearing this narrative about, oh, he's just going out trying to get his fair market value, what somebody's willing to pay him. I don't know if y'all know this, but Lenora Sellers makes like $2.7 million right down the road. Okay, and meanwhile, Lenora Sellers spent this summer going out looking for unpaid internships in the local Columbia area. All right, so this whole idea of fair market value, y'all hear Pete Nakos find out from his Carson Beck's agent that he got $4.5 million at Miami, and then all of a sudden, every quarterback that's worth his salt is worth $4.5 million. No, that's not how this works. Okay, you are what somebody is willing to pay you. That is 100% a fact, but I don't think he's going to find somebody willing to pay him $4 million right now over the next 4 months before, while he's in the transfer portal right now, which kind of takes us into our next several subcategories of discussion, which I think the biggest news out of this is a rumor. Now, I believe the rumor to be true. I don't have it confirmed, but I believe the rumor to be 100% true. This idea that Dan Lanning received a phone call from somebody in Nico's camp and then immediately called Josh Heupel and was like, hey, buddy, did you know that your quarterback's out here trying to hold me out for some more money? Did you know this? I think that's awesome. If that is legitimately true, I believe it to be true.
I have two takeaways from that. One, how can you be so careless if you're a part of Nico's camp doing that? Now, I mean, again, we can't prove that this is true. I think Dan Lanning's even kind of thrown his hands up and admitted himself of anything of this, saying, I have no idea what you're talking about. But you know that Nico was at least shopping around. How did the reports get back that, he was looking for a raise and threatening to enter the transfer portal? That was kind of my first takeaway of that is, why would you do that? Second takeaway I had was, and this kind of came to fruition throughout thinking about this, if Dan Lanning's calling Josh Heupel and saying, hey, this is what's going on, and then we've seen kind of the entire market shy away from Nico.
Dion said thanks, but no thanks. UNC said we might be interested, but not for that dollar amount. We'd rather sign the 5'8" lefty out of USA.
Do we think that this is something
USC said, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, do you think that this is something where coaches have collectively come together and said, okay, we would obviously get an upgrade at quarterback for, you presume, 1 year if we sign Nico. But we're also going to damage the entire sport as a whole if we give this kid what he wants and set a precedent that anyone can come in and say they want any dollar amount and someone will bend the knee to them.
Look, you use the word collective. On this network, we are going to avoid using the word collectively, whether it be bargaining or collectively, which means working together, because that would technically be illegal. All right. That would be manipulating the market to keep the employees down. All right. So let's not talk about this too publicly. But let's be honest. I think the days of, who cares? We'll bitch about the rules, but we'll break them ourselves because it's a competitive thing. We got to go win football games. I think college football coaches around America are starting to, whether it be via phone calls or whether or not via everyone having the same mindset of, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep going out here poaching each other's rosters because we got the ability to pay guys. We got to save the sport before House versus NCAA does. We can't sit around and wait for a ruling from some governmental officiant. We got to be out here governing our own sport, taking it up upon ourselves to realize, hey, if we allow Nico to say I'm worth $4 million and I'm going to leave my football team in the end of April and leave a SEC football program hanging in the wind right before a college football season, if we're going to allow this and then USC is going to turn around and pay him the $4 million, buddy, we're screwed. Nothing's stopping us from all of our guys doing this to us at this particular position. I do think there was some, I do think there was maybe some, I ain't touching it. You're not touching it, right? No, I'm not touching it. You're not going to do it? Okay, no. All right, we're all going to stay away from this. Let him go to Tulane. Let him go wherever he's going to go, because it ain't going to be it's going to be UCLA or Tulane right now. And it ain't going to be for $4 million.
No. It might not even be what he was making at Tennessee right now or yesterday, whatever.
Tulane's going to give him $600K if that's what it is.
And I think this is so impactful too, because we've seen the situations where a player takes a chance on themselves, enters a portal for what they think is going to be a better situation, and then they end up at a lesser program. But we haven't seen it like this, where a former 5-star is entering the transfer portal after being the starter, is by all accounts going to be the starter this year, is making really good money still at a program, takes a chance on themselves, is like, oh, that dude ended up at Tulane? That's what happened?
I mean, this is the epitome, and this is the actual realization of a story. The grass isn't always green. Like, people always talk about that in the transfer portal, and that's kind of the motto that a lot of these coaches use, and a lot of people kind of dismiss it and say, that's coach speak. That's you not wanting your players to leave your team. This is a prime example of it. Oh, the printer's going now?
The printer's just deciding to work now.
Just late.
Just showing up late.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I do think it was, like I said, I think it was a good thing that these college football coaches were like, no, we're not going to entertain this.
And honestly, I think Josh Heupel needs to get more flowers for this, because you very, very easily could have said, all right, you know what? We're in a national title window, we believe. We are trying to win now. We need to win now. We cannot do that without a quarterback. We believe you are that quarterback, Nico. We are going to have to give you the money that you are expecting. And no one would have really batted an eye to it and said, this is ridiculous. I mean, some people would have said that, but it would also been an understandable move. I mean, you're not going to dismiss your only true quarterback, but the fact is that they did go through with that. And the reality for Josh Heupel in Tennessee is you've kind of submarined your 2025 season with this.
You talking about Tennessee?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, if they re-signed him, I think they submarined their season. If they bent to him, if they agreed to whatever, if he holds out Friday, skips practice, and then you re-sign him, you can't walk back into that locker room telling everybody that it's all about the T and it's all about the we and it's not about me and all that good stuff that coaches try to preach. You can't do that if you bend the knee to your starting quarterback who holds you hostage like this. Look, I think that's the biggest thing for me. I do not care if Nico makes $17 million. I don't care that college football athletes are making money. I think there's this big narrative that people are clutching pearls because young people are making money. All right, that's not what bothers me. What bothers me is we go through 14 spring practices and you want to hold out on Friday, 6 days before the transfer portal opens, after holding the same team hostage in December. That's what ticks me off. And then you add on top of that the fact that his damn salary right now ain't coming out of no freaking rev share. It's coming out of Jimmy, the Tennessee volunteer booster, who loves the piss out of Tennessee football, so much so that he's funding the damn contract. And then the kid wants to say, I want more after putting up 2,600 yards passing. That's what makes everybody so upset. It's not because football presidents have been and universities have been making hundreds of millions of dollars for decades, and now all of a sudden we're giving the kids money. That's not what people are clutching pearls about. It's about the process and about the filth that comes with all of it. It's about we're gonna put up a list of all of my clients who may or may not be entering the portal 2 weeks before the portal opens, just to gauge the market for my client to see if I can go get more money elsewhere. That's what people are so upset about. And again, I cannot for the life of me overlook the fact and point to it enough that the fans are funding this shit. The fans are the one who lost their money. Not only did Tennessee's football program go from potentially 10-2, maybe we got year 2 under this 5-star that I paid for, to now we're 8-4. I paid for it. I just lost 18 months of investment into an athlete that gave me the middle fingers because his daddy wanted more money on the way out. That's why people are upset.
I mean, and two, they should be even more upset because we've sat here and questioned all spring of why was Tennessee not more active in the winter transfer portal, getting some type of weapons for Nico in this roster, because they lost so many and they didn't add anything, and it's more so of a question of like, is Mike Matthews going to be the guy for them? And then you find out Nico's trying to get more money, and then as a result, other players are obviously trying to get more money, threatening to enter the transfer portal. Well, that kind of answers it of why you couldn't, because there was this trickling effect going on, and then he double downs on top of that as well.
I think the biggest mistake that the representation of these players and, parents and whoever else represents these kids.
Oh, you'll never hear who is the original agent on this.
Yeah.
This dude will never put his name on this.
Oh, no.
Never will he ever put his name on this.
No. But I was saying, I think a lot of mistakes that are made are the representation treats this like it's the NFL organization.
Yeah.
Like it's not let's be realistic what college football is for a second. For the most part, yeah, there's TV deals, yeah, there's sponsorships and things, but a large portion of this money comes from fans and people who went to the school, who have been lifelong fans, who, you know, might not make as much as corporate sponsorships do, but have more of an emotional investment in this.
Yeah.
And when you treat this league and players like, you know, they're just commodities to get as much money as you can, you're taking advantage of the fan base and the sport as a whole, which... Save that shit for the NFL if you want to do that. But
and just the amount of, I don't know how many fans showed up for their spring game, but I know the numbers around here. I know the fans that I talk to. I know college football fans that root for their favorite football teams will always show up on Saturday. I know they will in the fall. But you know what they stopped showing up for? They stopped showing up for this in the offseason. Their passion, their fire for the sport, it's draining by the hour. It is ticking down by the hour. I had somebody comment on our GDay recap video earlier in the week. Haven't watched a single portion of college football content since the Notre Dame game.
Wow.
And I can't tell you how many people speak like that. Guess what, guys? We got bills to pay. All right, and I mean, I need college football to return to something that at least looks solid. That the foundation on it doesn't look like it's crumbling beneath itself. While we all hunky and dory, yay, we had a college football playoff to watch. I mean, that's all fine and dandy, but I need people to be actively engaged with their university year round. That's how this sport breathes, and that's how this sport, at least the content side of it, breathes. I hate to be selfish, but I'm also speaking for the fans' fatigue on this subject. Man, you guys are worn out. You guys are worn out on this shit.
I mean, the problem that is yes, the amateur guys had its issue, and the idea that, you know, these players were getting paid in education and places to live and all that was kind of a hoax and all those things. But the reality is that the NIL era of college football has turned and accelerated the sport into what can we do to get the most money out of it everywhere you look. Let's expand the playoff. Let's get new TV deals so we can realign conferences. Let's jump to different rosters so we can have more money. We can get different opportunities and get raises.
Yeah.
Team be damned, culture be damned. We're about the dollar. That precedent was set a long time ago. And I understand now why so many people were kind of apprehensive to the idea of NIL. And, you know, everyone labeled them as, you know, oh, you're old school. You're taking advantage of these players. Well, no, it was more to prevent stuff like this from happening.
Yeah.
I mean, you go back 5 years ago, the conferences look completely different. The playoff format looks completely different. The way that players deal with the offseason is completely different. Like, I mean, there are bidding wars and holdouts in college football now to the point where it's not the sport that people fell in love with. It's something much, much different than that, and it's driving people insane.
Look, Ed points to a good point here in the chat. It says the truth is this is a miss in recruiting. Tennessee went to California for this 5-star kid, and now they have California problems. There's plenty of kids who would love to be QB1 at Tennessee. Look, I do think Tennessee's getting a bunch of praise right now for the way that they're handling this, right? Josh Heupel in particular getting a lot of praise for not bending to this type of negotiation, but there is a side of this debate, or at least a side of this topic, where you can point to them as being the culprits that created this monster, right? I mean, nobody asked Tennessee to, I don't want to air their shit out, but he's gone, and I don't think anybody's ever going to run him down. Nobody asked Tennessee to send a private jet to California and bring him to Knoxville. Nobody asked Tennessee Inspire Sports to sign this kid for $8 million guaranteed out of high school at $2.5 annual dollars, or $2.5 annual salary for 3 years with a fourth year added on if he's not drafted. Nobody asked them to do that, okay? From my understanding, I had sourcing close to him in high school. From my understanding, every other competitive offer was around $1.5 million. Tennessee brings the private jet, throws $8 million in front of the kid, and it's like, bang, I'm a Tennessee Volunteer. Of course you are. The highest price tag. What keeps you from being, I'm going to the next highest price tag when it's available? Well, nothing, apparently. We just hit the portal seeking $4 million that we won't ultimately get. The other talking point about this, and it's the one that I think most people are making fun of on social media, is the dad. The dad was obviously a major player in this decision and was obviously a major catalyst in not only him going to Tennessee, but him leaving Tennessee, and was a huge talking point in this story because of what he tweeted out Friday night after the initial the reporting. Pete Nakos comes out and reports that they're in active negotiations and it might go south and Nico might hit the portal. Nick Iamaleava goes to Twitter and calls Pete Nakos, for lack of a better term, a bitch. Calls him Bitch Nakos from On3 and calls him a liar and says that the report has no credibility at all. Boy, was he wrong. Boy, was he wrong. Okay, then you know what's so funny? You can tell which media members talking to which media or which sourcing, because in one article I read that Nick and Nico were completely caught off guard by this agent who shall be unnamed and remain unnamed. That the agent acted rogue. I'm sure he did. And I'm sure the person who claimed that the agent acted rogue definitely wasn't talking to Nick Iamaleava on that story.
Brother, if the agent's acting rogue, why are you not showing up to practice?
There you go.
Like if the agent's
if
out
the agent's acting all on himself, why are you not at practice on Friday?
I mean, the holdout, which was the nail in the coffin, by the way, the negotiations were fine, but when the reports came out that you weren't at practice, that's when it was basically, all right, we're moving on from this guy. How can you claim that rogue actions took place when you're the one who didn't show up?
Trying to get the PR nightmare up off your own shoulders. I do think that would be the best case scenario for Nico. Specifically for Nick Iamaleava to come out and say this is on me, or for the agent, who will never do it because it'll be the death of his career, to come out and say I fucked this up. Sorry, put a mark on the board.
I mean, do you think
I messed this up big time?
Do you think we get to a point where Nico does that, where it's like, listen, I was giving bad
We won't
advice.
hear from Nico until the first game of the year next year when he's starting for the Tulane Green Wave.
A question I have is, do you think this changes the way recruiting is done now? Because they did we just talked about it. Tennessee brought out all the bells and whistles to get this kid to Tennessee. It was basically like, this was one of the first premier examples of they bought a recruit. Yeah, the promise of Tennessee and the prestige of the program and all that's great, and you're a great fit here, but private jet and $8 million to a 17-year-old kid, that bought a program, that bought a recruit. Yeah. And obviously it has gone terribly.
Yeah.
Do you think teams that are also kind of in that, hey, you know what, we'll pay this much money for a player and we'll do this for you and we'll do these things for you, are going to start backing off that because they're scared of what happened?
I think it would scare me off of upfront money, promising a kid something. I think it would also scare me off of the idea that I'm in active renegotiation stuff every time you play well. Yeah. Every time you play well, I got to give you a raise. Even when you don't play well, I got to give you a raise. When somebody else gets a raise, I got to give you a raise, like you're goddamn Nick Saban or something. Like, what is this? I think that type of correction happens. I wrote an article today on our South Carolina site about just how I would really be investing in quarterback recruiting and scouting to the point where it behooves you right now to go out and sign. And now, I know they don't grow on trees, but I would be trying to find the next Lenoris Sellers. I wouldn't be out here searching through whether or not I can pay $2.5 million for a down payment for Jared Curtis. I would be going through the list and saying, hey, who's a traitsy guy that I can maybe develop into a superstar, because I get 2 years free, basically. Mm-hmm. I get 1.5 years free. I don't like the idea that they paid Nico $2 million to sit on the bench behind Joe Milton, then paid him $2.5 million to play like a middling SEC starter, and then had to pay him $4 million to keep him. That's a nightmare scenario. Now, I'm not saying every 5-star is that way, but every 5-star quarterback at this position is going to now come with a down payment. On top of that, I know you want to jump in here. On top of that, because of House versus NCAA, a lot of teams in the recruitment process are trying to front load a lot of this money right now, because I can get it in before the rules come down on regulations with Deloitte. Mm-hmm. So, long story short, I don't know if it scares anybody off from the next one.
Well, you said something that kind of perked my ears up about, being a middling SEC quarterback. Statistically, yes, we talked about it. He had an underwhelming first year.
Top 3.
Well, I also want to point this out too. The entire regular season and the entire year, we talked about Tennessee. Their biggest issue was Nico's not playing well because, well, he's not getting protected, and the weaponry isn't really there. We talked about how going into the 2025 season, you'd expect them to go out and try to get weapons in the transfer portal. Now it shows that they were financially had their hands tied by Nico. Would you not say it's fair to assume that the money that they had in Nico, the amount of capital that they put into this one sole player alone, lowered the quality of their team to the point where it affected them long term?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's also a big red flag that not enough people are paying attention to. It wasn't just Nico was a bad quarterback. It was Nico didn't really have a team around him. That's part of the reason why you had all these demands. You're like, hey, you got to go out and get offensive linemen in the transfer portal or I'm entering the portal.
Especially under the rev share model. I talked to an agent yesterday. I don't talk to a lot of agents, but I trust this guy, and I think he's a good person because I've known him even prior to his agencies. But this idea that NIL agents and college agents are starting to use this 25 to 30% rule, where in the NFL, great quarterbacks demand 25% of your salary cap. That's what they get paid. Every time the salary goes up or salary cap goes up, their salary goes up because they're tied directly to the salary cap percentage. I've been led to believe that a lot of these NIL agents are starting to do this with the quarterback, which means if you have a 5-star quarterback under the rev share model, if you're allotted $15.5 million for football, guess who's going to get 25% of that bill from now on? 5-star quarterbacks agents are going to be trying to get that. So if you're paying $15.5 million, what's 25% of that? A quarter of $15 million is right around what, $2.5-3 million? A little bit more than that, actually. I think it's close to 4.
3.5 about.
Okay, so that's a lot of money to be tied up in one specific player. Now you could say in the pro ranks, every time one of these teams invests in a quarterback at that rate, the rest of the team deteriorates, and it makes sense.
Let's also remember one important thing within the NFL and college. The average college career, I mean, let's be realistic. If you're a college quarterback nowadays, I would say the average threshold of starts you get before you go to the league is about 30.
Yeah.
You have to go through an entire 2 or 3 seasons in a rookie deal before you can get that 25% contract. Yeah. Jaden Daniels isn't making 25% of the Washington Commanders roster right now.
You got to earn it.
Like, guys like that aren't, the big earners. So Nico, who had 13 starts last season, all of a sudden coming up and getting, hey, this is what NFL guys are making, I should make it. It's asinine.
Also, by the way, side note here, I thought Tennessee did a tremendous job steering this media narrative as fast as they could. I mean, they're the ones who leaked out the $4 million price tag. They wanted the world to know that their $2.5 million quarterback demanded a raise after playing like he did last year. Okay, playing like a $2 million quarterback last year and demanding $4 million. Also, I don't know if Josh Heupel sent like some bat signal out, but every massive college football social media account was shitting on this kid this past week.
Yeah.
All of them, myself included, because it was a terrible decision. But I mean, Chase Daniel, Robert Griffin III, all of the big voices in college media, everyone was crapping on this.
I think it's because it's such an egregious example of greed.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't a Heisman winner. Yeah, you went to the playoff this year. That's what you can hang your hat on as the starting quarterback at Tennessee. You didn't light the world on fire statistically. You didn't compete for the Heisman. It wasn't anything that would justify $4 million. If Travis Hunter came out in 2024 at the end of the 2023 season was like, hey, Dion, let me get $4 million, there would be some people in this space saying, you know what, Travis Hunter is the best player in college football. He absolutely deserves it. It's fair market. But Nico was so far from this that everyone, literally everyone, including Tennessee fans, the most people with Nico Iamaleava jerseys were like, who the hell does this guy think he is?
While denying it for the first 24 hours.
Right. The
Tennessee reaction initially was like, fake news, Pete Nakos is lying, that guy needs to be fired. And then immediately, even in our comment section, they were like, oh, Brooks fell for the clickbait. Brooks is out here. He's going back to Tennessee. This ain't happening. This ain't a big deal.
We said there was a 95% chance he was a Tennessee Vol by the end of the week.
Yeah.
I remember that. Goddamn, the 5% chance came through.
Yeah, I mean, the holdout was the last straw.
Yeah,
I'm not showing up for practice was it.
And again, you might have been able to get away with Caleb Williams after his Heisman season doing this, or Travis Hunter last year, or a guy that lit the world on fire and then came back. I mean, if NIL was a thing in 2012, Johnny Manziel would have absolutely been able to walk in and say, give me $4 million.
Johnny Manziel's dad apparently did.
That's allegedly.
He walked into Kevin's, not allegedly, this is by the word of Johnny Manziel. Said there was a literal meeting where Johnny's dad walked into Kevin Sumlin's office and said, we need $3 million cash or we're going to the NFL. And Kevin Sumlin was like, well, you're going to the NFL. Get out of here. And he went to the NFL. Go ahead.
I'm just sitting here trying to think of any example where one of these highly paid recruits or even just a highly paid transfer portal acquisition has actually panned out, not even just for them alone, but a team collectively had success by acquiring one of these players. The biggest,
I'm leaving my team for money. The first example of it I remember was Jordan Addison leaving Pitt after an All-American season, damn near won the Biletnikoff, and everybody, that was the first sign of, oh shit, this is going to get ugly. Like, people are going to lose their best players. Pat Narduzzi threw a bitch fit like it was a big thing. That flopped big time at USC. Now, he ended up going on to be, I think, a second-round pick with Minnesota Vikings, but it hasn't worked out in the league for Jordan Addison either. So that was the first one I remember. I think Will Howard is a success story, but that wasn't a big price tag. I think they paid him like $1.2 million or something like that. I think Cam Ward was a success story, but that wasn't a massive price tag. I don't remember that being $4 million. The $4.5 million for Carson Beck seems like, I don't know how they recoup that investment. I mean, they got to win a national title. The rest of the roster doesn't look like they have that much around them, though. So I just don't know. I guess that leads us into our next discussion on this is like, does this start off a chain reaction? I think it already has. I think with Mario, I mean, every coach in America was asked about this weekend at their spring games. Every coach to a man was like, hey, if you try that shit here, you're out. I think it already started the chain reaction. There will be no college holdouts. If you think you can skip practice, demand more money, you can go on and hit the portal.
Now, as great as that sounds and as awesome as that is, I think that it's going to take one scab to be like, listen, man, we really could use a 5-star talent on our roster to put us over the edge. And they'll pay for whatever they're demanded, and it'll start this all over again. But for now, it's a great sign because the market has said, you're not worth that much money. You can find work elsewhere, and no one wants to hire you. Like Nico Iamaleava has been blackballed by the NCAA, by all the programs in the NCAA.
The Power Five.
The Power Four.
Yeah.
To a point where you're not getting what you're demanded, your reputation's tarnished, and you are probably not going to do anything draft stock-wise.
Worst agent decision since Lev Bell? Lev Bell, by the way, to let you know, I think $80 million is what he turned down with Pittsburgh to sit out for a year and sign for $20 million with the Jets.
Yeah.
He cost himself $60 million.
I'm trying to think of another example. I can't off the top. I mean, this is like going to go down as one of the biggest flubs in college football history.
Yeah.
As far as off the field negotiations go.
All right, so we think he ends up at either Tulane or UCLA right now.
That's where it
seems like the only two options.
Definitely ain't getting $4 million.
Nope.
And I can only imagine what the discussions with NFL departments are going to be when he gets to the combine.
Good Lord.
About all this. Which leads us to our next and our last topic point here. Where does Tennessee go? I think it starts with, hey, who can they now go tamper with? And does this slow them a little bit on how much they're aggressive with their tampering? I know their fan base wants them to go sign Sam Leavitt. I don't think that's happening. I know they want them to go steal Buddy from Kansas State.
Avery Johnson.
Yeah, Avery Johnson. I don't know if that's happening. Playing? By the way, I've seen them hype up Haynes King. I don't know if you've seen Haynes King throw a football, but he don't need to be in wide choice offenses. Okay, so there's that. Whoever they go add better have a big ass arm. All right, I think Jake Merklinger is a good serviceable player. I think he's going to be fine.
We pulled DJU out of retirement.
I mean, there's that. I honestly like the George McIntyre kid. He is Nico, 6'6", long, lanky athlete that can't quite read the field yet and is going to go through massive growing pains. Like Jake Merklinger, I think threw 16 interceptions last year as a senior in high school. I think he threw 12 the year before. This has been a major turnover problem prone kid in high school. Now, some of it, most people that watched him in high school and evaluated him and know him will tell you that he felt like he had to make plays. So that's why he did that. But I'm well-versed with Tennessee high school football. I don't think the Baylor school is known as one of those lesser thans. They're more than likely a have than normal. But
I think you would, me personally, I would just kind of lick your wounds this season. Take what you have right now, and then next year, you go into next season with, if Merklinger looked like he could build upon that, then you have him, you have George McIntyre in year 2, and you have Faison Brandon entering year 1.
Is there a way that this galvanizes the roster?
It could, but if you, as a coach, mail it in and say, hey, we just got to take our wounds this year, guys. 2025 is a wrap because we lost the QB. Like, what does that say to me, the starting wide receiver, how much you believe in me? If you're like, all right, we lost the quarterback, it's time to mail it in. We're just going to take our lumps here. Like, I feel like
Brentwood Academy, not the Baylor School.
I feel like if you're Tennessee, you have to at least make an effort to make it seem like, all right, this is now. Obviously, what you have is a big mess. You have to deal with that, and obviously, you're going to be playing from behind a little bit, but you have to at least make an effort. Like, this is, for all extensive purposes, a team that we thought could make the playoff this year, could compete for an SEC title.
Yeah.
So you have to still act like that. It can't just be, well, our quarterback's gone. Sorry, boys. Because I think you're going to get more transfer entries if that happens.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they made a college football playoff last year with Nico throwing 2,800 yards and 18 touchdowns, something along the lines of that. Now, he protected the football. He didn't turn it over a whole lot. But still, like, you were able to do that and still make a playoff. I think their defense is still really solid despite losing guys like James Pierce. I mean, I think it's still a really solid football team. I think Josh Heupel proved last season that he finds ways to win even when what people say is his strength isn't working like it should be. So I think he could find a way to win. I mean, this is a QB guy. I mean, this is a guy that knows the position. I feel like he could find a way to win games and at least put in like a satisfactory season.
Yeah. What?
Chat saying Rashada.
Let's start with these spring game reactions. Oh, no, actually, I want to talk about this first because they just some news on this front as well. Random report this afternoon from On3. Ole Miss going to be a buyer in the quarterback portal market. I think it says they just got a 2026 commit out of Dallas, Texas, or Austin, Texas. Now, this to me is a direct shot at Austin Simmons. This is, we thought this was our solid answer. This is a problem, maybe not a problem, but we got to go get another body. This guy ain't quite ready to be our sole answer at the position.
Is it, or is it, we need X number of quarterbacks in the room?
I don't know. This didn't seem like we're in the market for a body.
No.
This seemed like, hey, let the world know that Ole Miss is a buyer for a starting caliber quarterback in the portal this spring. Who?
I think that's even more of a reason why Tennessee should not be jumping into that market.
Yeah.
Because now you're going to be competing with another SEC school in a school that, by all accounts, will spend it when they want to. Why would you jump into that battle?
Yeah. And the other thing that complicates all of this, it complicates this for Nico, it complicates this for Tennessee, it complicates this for Ole Miss. You can't go get an SEC arm.
Nope.
No.
You can't go get a kid that's in the conference anymore. You have to go outside of the conference, which means immediately off rip, you're more than likely taking a quote-unquote lesser-than player, somebody who's not in one of the premier conferences. You're going to have to go to the Big Ten, try to poach a QB there. You're going to have to go to the Big 12, try to poach a QB there.
Which, by the way, again, how irresponsible of the Iamaleava camp to not look around the college football landscape first and at least have an idea of where you would go should you enter the transfer portal. Michigan seems happy with their quarterback. Mm-hmm. Ohio State seems happy with their quarterback.
Or at least way too far invested into certain quarterbacks that they don't have money to go buy another one.
Correct. All right, I'll change it then.
Yeah.
Those teams aren't going to shell out money for a quarterback. Notre Dame's not going to shell out money for a quarterback. USC's probably, like, name the program that was going to pay you $4 million if you did go to the transfer portal.
Well, I think he thought Texas Tech, and I think they thought UCLA, and I think they thought USC and Oregon were going to be players. And then, like we talked about with that, definitely not collectively bargained, but I think there was some, we're not going to do this. We're not going to, or no one's taking this kid. We're going to let him go to Tulane.
A colossal misjudgment.
I mean, if he were a $1 million player, I think he's at UNC right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Bill Belichick takes him. I saw a tweet earlier today that made me laugh really, really hard. You're telling me Bill Belichick refused to pay Tom Brady, but he's going to be out here paying $4 million for Nico?
No.
Come on, dog.
No.
Get up out of here. Yeah, like they're talking about maybe doing a flip-flop for the Texas Tech quarterback, the Baron Morton kid. I don't like this whole
trade.
Yeah, I don't like this whole my quarterback left, so who can I go out and poach? I don't like this idea, but it is what it is. It's the nature of college football.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the reality of the sport we're living in. But again, I don't think that you're going to be able to go ahead and poach a guy like that's as high profile as Nico Iamaleava.
Chat makes a good point. Rashada entered in December, so technically he could transfer to an SEC school.
Ah.
But I don't know if that's the one you want to go get.
No.
So there's that. All right, let's get into these spring games. All right. Let's start with A-Day out there in Tuscaloosa. Christian Kirby, I tasked you with this one. This was your homework assignment. What did you learn about Alabama this weekend at their A-Day? Before you get there, I just want to say this. All of you fans watching this right now, it is the middle of April, and you're tuned into a college football network, which means you love your football team. So let me speak to that love. The whole reason they didn't put this shit on television was so nobody could see it. And it kind of defies that point when some yahoo is in the stands with his phone taking clips of every single damn play so he can boost the views on his YouTube page. All right? It kind of defeats the purpose. But I hope you got your subs up, man. I really hope you did, while pissing off the football coach that you cover. So go ahead.
I'm glad that you led with that, because I watched said highlight clips, and it was very evident that Alabama was practicing or scrimmaging with this in mind of there's going to be people in the stands, there's going to be cameras out, we're going to see a lot of things. There was some fanfare. Every single spring game that I've watched highlights for, attended, there was some form of a double pass early on to kind of get the fans rowdying. But other than that, very vanilla from Alabama, very, very basic. It was a very lax environment. A lot of tagging off. Didn't see them go full to the ground very much at all. My biggest takeaways from it were their receivers looked really, really good.
Yeah, they've been raving.
A lot of 50-50 balls were caught in this. A lot of separation at routes. There was a period towards the back end where they were doing one-on-ones with the DBs. Now, obviously, that's a drill that favors the wide receivers in their route running, but they looked good. They were separating well. Defensive backs, on the other hand, did not. And I'm not even alluding to, the one-on-one drills. There were a couple interceptions in there just because of bad quarterback decisions, but they did not play the ball well in the air. There was a lot of lackadaisical, he caught it, never mind.
A lot of love about Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. from what I've seen.
Yes, they looked decent. I'm not even going to try and analyze the running game because, like I said, it's tagging off. You've got
universal take across the board on all these spring games. They're just not running the ball. It's lack of collisions.
Yeah, I mean, there was fitting holes very softly. It was basically just, hey, just run to the gap you're supposed to. So not even going to entertain that. Ty Simpson, I think, is the cleanest quarterback, and Ryan Grubb kind of alluded to this. He was asked, hey, if we had to start a game today, Ty Simpson would be our quarterback, which kind of bold to come out and say. You don't hear that a lot from coaches at this point in the season. I feel like he was the cleanest from what I saw, but there are a lot of deep ball accuracy questions. And I also wonder, just from watching it, he doesn't seem to have the wow factor to me. Now, we've seen plenty of quarterbacks do well without the wow factor. We've seen plenty of teams win national titles without that said wow factor and have very successful seasons. But
I do think of all those quarterbacks in that room, Ty Simpson, Keelan Russell, and Austin Mack, believe it or not, Ty Simpson's the best athlete.
I believe
if anyone's adding their legs, it's Simpson. So some of that stuff you're not going to see in a spring game,
correct,
obviously.
But I think that and it's kind of a representation of, I think, what Kalen DeBoer wants. You had a quarterback last year that was the definition of wow factor. But at the same time, if you weren't getting wow factor, you were getting, oh my God, what is he doing?
Yeah.
I think you're getting a guy in Ty Simpson that is not going to... This guy's the best player on the field ever, but he's also going to be like, all right, this is a very solid quarterback that takes care of the football.
I think Ty Simpson is the perfect middle ground between that number 9 that DeBoer had at Fresno State. I can't remember that kid's name. He lit it the hell up, though. And then Michael Penix, right? Michael Penix is a blue chip quarterback prospect and thrower of the football, tremendous athlete, progresses, reads the field exceptionally. I think he's going to work in the NFL. The kid from Fresno State didn't have all those physical traits, but saw the field really, really well. I think Ty Simpson is an A- physical traits guy across the board and sees the field really, really well. I do want that name of that Fresno State quarterback.
Jake Haener.
Oh, Jake Haener lit it the hell up, man. Under DeBoer, I think this is going to be, like I said, he's a lot more physically gifted than Jake Haener, but he's not quite Michael Penix.
I like that. But that was my takeaway from the A-Day game. Again, take all of this with as much of importance as you'd like. It's a spring scrimmage that was very clearly done to intend kind of just get fans excited, but not really tip their hand to anything.
So they do feel like they've kind of got their quarterback position figured out. Speaking of figuring it out, boys, I think I've figured out swag. I think I've figured out fashion. And it's only thanks to our friends at Bird Dogs. If you head to Bird Dogs right now, birddogs, BIRDDOGS.com, and use promo code FGN, you'll get one of these free hats right here you see on the desk. Hit me with a camera 4 shot right quick. You'll see, I'll get one of these nice free hats over at Bird Dogs if you use promo code FGN. I'm a big fan of the shorts. I got the shorts on today. Had the shorts on over at GDay as well. Got flicked up a dozen times by the listeners in the fan base out there in the stands on Saturday. So shout out to our friends over at Bird Dogs. Again, that's Bird Dogs, BIRDDOGS. Use promo code FGN for any purchase. Hunter Lacey says in the chat, I gotta buy me some Bird Dogs. That's a big fact. A big fact in the chat tonight from our friend Hunter Lacey. Head over to birddogs.com today. Support those who support this channel. Please do that today. Let's continue our spring game observations. I tasked myself outside of the show notes to watch Notre Dame. Reason being, Notre Dame wasn't scared of that shit this weekend. Notre Dame was on the cock for everybody to see. Okay, you could watch it live. You could watch the highlights on the tube. You could do everything for Notre Dame. Guess what? Wasn't no tagging off over there on the cock neither. They was tackling to the ground up there in South Bend this weekend, and I got some observations for you. First and foremost, the box play. The box play for Notre Dame on the cock this weekend was elite. All right. Offensive line, defensive line, look at blue chip status. They look great. Okay. Running back, number 24, had big explosive runs this weekend as well. I really like what they got coming back in terms of a run game and the ability to stop the run on that defensive side of the ball. I'm telling you, Notre Dame looks like an SEC premier roster in the box. You could see that on the cock this weekend. Tight end group looks extremely deep as per usual. You kind of expect them to have that. 85, 84, 9. Just a bunch of big dudes running down the middle of the field. I also thought their offensive coordinator was hunting. This was interesting to see. I saw throwback screens. I saw slip screens. I saw verticality in the offense. I saw double moves. I saw it all this weekend from Notre Dame on the field. The Kenny Minchie kid. All right, so backup quarterback. All right, this is an athlete now. All right, they're talking about number 18. I forget his name. They're talking about C.J. Carr, Lloyd Carr's grandson. But the dude that I was impressed with was this Kenny Minchie kid. Tremendous athlete, boys. We're seeing a lot of the backflips, round off back handsprings after scores from a lot of skill position players, right? A lot of wide receivers, a lot of DBs, a lot of running backs. Saw a standing back tuck from this quarterback from Notre Dame this weekend. Explosive athlete. Wow. Like what I saw. I told you their staff. I was extremely impressed by how competitive they were with play calling. Now, a freshman, I want to put you on. All right, a freshman, I want to put you on. Elijah Burris. Elijah Burris going to eat for Notre Dame this year. Wide receiver, I like what he's got. A lot of juice in Elijah Burris. That's what I took away from Notre Dame. A lot of good play in the box on the cock this weekend.
Come on now.
You're doing it on purpose now.
I mean, yeah.
Who's the next team you wanted to?
I think Jonathan watched them big lizards down there in Gainesville. Did you go take a peek at Florida?
I did take a peek at Florida. Now
try to do this without being the Georgia homer shitting on the Gators.
No,
there's a lot to shit on here.
A lot of shit, you think?
There's a lot to at least look at and be like, that seems like bad news.
Oh, no. I think that doing this unbiasedly, I think I have to provide both good and bad because that's exactly what this was. There was a lot of good, but then there's also what I would say is a lot of bad. Just to kind of put this into perspective, give you like a grand scheme of like recapping the Florida spring game. There were 70 total points scored in this football game. The final score was 38-32.
Love that.
This was not with DJ Lagway playing quarterback either. This was with a second-string quarterback and a third-string quarterback, one of them being Harrison Bailey, who's on his fourth school right now, former Tennessee quarterback. And then the other one is a guy from Colorado State, Nevada. So this is not some five-star quarterback slinging it around the yard. But with that said, the biggest positive of the day is these wide receivers look the part. Specifically, Dallas Wilson. He had 10 receptions for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Big time stamped.
Yeah, a big time
stamp to 5
introduction to the SEC football. That's a guy right there. That guy is going to be really good for Florida. That is a threat for sure as a wideout. The other thing, Jacoby, if you thought that stat line was crazy, get ready for this one.
This is what made me be like, oh, did they practice any defense this spring?
Yeah.
Give me this stat. This was nuts.
Jacoby Jackson, who is technically their second string running back.
Yeah, or Jaden Ball is their starter.
Jaden Ball, yeah. He had 10 attempts for 198 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. He nearly averaged 20 yards per carry. So at this point, when I'm watching this spring game, I'm going back and checking, like, did any defensive starters play? Like, or did they just sit them all out? Yes, there were defensive starters on the football field for Florida. Yeah, it didn't seem like they could stop anything. Maybe that's because the offense is just that good. I mean, I think it certainly speaks volumes again that the wide receivers were able to have as big of a day as they did with the quarterback play that they had. So certainly a lot of positives for Florida's offense, something that they want to hear, and I'm interested and highly intrigued to see what that looks like when DJ is able to start throwing and is inserted into the mix here. But now, I mean, let's just kind of get into some of the bads of the secondary. Just looked questionable in general. I mean, it looked like at times where I don't want to say they weren't trying, but it looked like there was maybe a lack of effort. Maybe didn't like tackling was kind of subpar. Guys were running wide open, maybe not finishing the drill all the way through. But if there was a positive for the defense, they did finish the day with 6 sacks on Saturday. So defensive line, maybe some of the linebackers, edge department, they got active. Secondary, though, however, might be some issues there.
Now, I'm not going to even act like I watched this or watch the highlights of this, but I do want to kind of, I guess, play devil's advocate here. As someone who did watch it, how much of this was, oh, these guys are just straight up getting torched, or how much of it was, it's a spring game.
That guy's probably tackled.
Yeah, coach said, let's not go too hard. Let's go to the ground. Let's tackle people, but let's also not hurt each other. Do you think it was that, or is it just they got torched?
From like the 3 minutes I was able to watch, because that's what was posted on YouTube, I would say that the big Jacoby Jackson run that I saw, and there was only one on this highlight clip, that one was, I would say, was like a legitimate, that plays on Saturdays in the fall. Like that was a legitimate play that he made. I want to say it was like a 25-yard touchdown run, something like that. And Dallas Wilson was certainly getting loose. Now, it's kind of hard because the way that it's filmed, you can't really see the DBs actually covering these guys, so you really have no idea what's happening until the ball is thrown. But he was certainly making plays after the catch.
Let's be quick here with North Carolina. What did you see from those guys this weekend, Kirby?
Dude, this was so hard to do.
Yeah.
So I opened up the highlight tape. There was a nice 5-minute highlight tape. Not a single jersey number on the entire player bunch.
You told me about this. Now, I understand we're playing games and we're doing the thing, but I could just imagine, first of all, they just got there in December. How in the hell are they watching film? There's no numbers on the jersey. So what do you sit there and do? You call your running back room and go, hey, which one of you guys is actually in on play 59? Because I don't know who you are. Yeah. Now, I think I'm pretty good at recognizing body types. Oh, that's so-and-so. I can just look at his silhouette and know who he is. But there's no way they're 100% flawless in this, right?
No. But either way, we opened the night kind of talking about how North Carolina is in the market for a quarterback, and I could see why.
Yeah.
They got middling quarterback play at best. It doesn't seem like they have a guy who can really push the ball down the field. A lot of happy feet, a lot of standing in the pocket too long, getting sacks, making bad reads. They also ran the ball a shit ton for a spring game. We talked about how, a lot of spring scrimmages, they'll air it out, let the quarterbacks kind of get a feel for the offense. Running the ball also leads to more injuries. I would say from what I saw, they ran the ball 60% of the time. So alarming to say at best. Also, O-line was getting beaten pass pro a good bit now.
Yeah.
That could be, like I said, quarterback holding on to the ball a little bit too long. But there was a lot of, that pocket caved in pretty quick and he had to take off. So the UNC offensive experience is going to be interesting to watch. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch just in general because it's Bill Belichick. But I didn't see great things from the Tar Heels.
Their future at quarterback's Bryce Baker. He just got on campus in December. It's January, really. It's probably going to be something that they're going to start the kid from South Alabama, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Get him in there and let him play a year and then turn it over to Bryce Baker in the future. I would imagine that one wasn't cheap. Bryce Baker was like a big-time SEC Big Ten type of recruit and then ended up in North Carolina towards the end of that recruitment cycle last year. So we'll see what they got going on. The USA kid looks like he's really competitive. Honestly, it looks like a left-handed more accurate Noah Fafita.
Ooh.
That's what that kid looks like to me when I watch him on tape. I had Auburn. Okay. I reached out to two people over there at the Auburn space that I respect highly. I reached out to some coaches too, but didn't get anything back from those guys as per usual. But let's talk about it. No Jackson Arnold in the spring game this weekend. They must have sent out a public statement, because the feedback I got from every media member I asked about this was Jackson Arnold did not play, in parentheses, hamstring, quote, they're not worried about it, from both people. So I think this was kind of a tweaked it late in spring, we're just not going to risk it, that type of thing. So no Jackson Arnold this weekend. I want to read you a few things that I got sent from people I trust. First shout out goes to my boy Mike G over at the War Report. Told me that the Auburn receiver corps, like we raved about last week, performed like they should have on Saturday. Specifically mentioned obviously the Singleton kid from Georgia Tech, but the specific names that I was given, one specific receiver in particular. Give me 1 second. This is Malcolm. Malcolm's last name is, I want to say, Brown. Anyways, this is a bad segment right here, but Malcolm, wide receiver. Will you give me that? He signed with Cam Coleman. Give me his name.
Simmons.
Malcolm Simmons. They think that kid is on par with the Singleton kid, and the Singleton kid got paid $1 million basically to go to Auburn. So there's that. Also, they love Damari Alston, the running back from Woodward. They don't know if he's going to be like the SEC leading rusher per carry like Jaquez Hunter was last year, but they like the pairing of what he can do in terms of maximizing the carries with the combination of Jeremiah Cobb, who, if y'all remember Jeremiah Cobb coming out of high school, that's a 10.28, like 10.38, 100-meter guy. That's lightning in a bottle, and they really, really like what they have at the running back position as well. Also got some details from the homie Justin Hawkinson of Auburn Live. Y'all need to check these guys out, War Report and Auburn Live. Loved what he had to say about the corners. I love their cornerback room, not from I think these guys are going to be first-round draft picks, but when you go to play Auburn next year, and you're a wide receiver, you better bring your mouthpiece. You're going to fight for 4 quarters against Caden Lee and Jaden Crawford. Those are two state of Georgia prospects that I covered heavily while they were here in the state. I actually shot Caden Lee's commitment video to the University of Georgia originally, ends up flipping to Auburn towards the end of the recruitment cycle. He's going to be a 4-year starter at Auburn. All right, that's a really, really competitive, gritty football player. Jaden Crawford's the exact same way. Kid out of Parkview High School last year, they had a returning starter at corner. Jaden Crawford beat him out midway through the year and continued to start. He's returning this year. That's the backup just hit the portal from them as we're speaking right now. So I really like what they have at corner. They really like what they have at corner. Now, the problem defensively, from what I've told, they're very front-loaded at linebacker right now. It's DeMarcus Riddick returning as a sophomore, played a lot last year as a true freshman, highly touted recruit, was committed to Georgia. Like Kane Lee, they flipped him late in the process as well. He's really, really good. The problem is they don't know really what's in that 2 deep, what's in that 3 deep. They're really, really thin. Same message was received from the safety position as well. Defensive line is going to be predicated solely off what Keldrick Falk can do for them this year at defensive end. They bulked him up. I think he's about 275 pounds now. It's a really big football player that I like a lot, and he's the leader of that defense from everything that I've heard. Now, both individuals that I spoke to, again, Mike G and my man Justin Hawkinson, both of them really liked what they saw from Deuce Knight this spring. Now, one of them, and I'm not going to tell you which one of them was more apropos to believe that Deuce Knight might be the starter midway through the season. The other one thinks they might be able to ride it out with Jackson Arnold based off what they saw this spring. But I don't think it's like, hey, all problems are solved. We have the prayers answered with Jackson Arnold at the quarterback position, which none of us thought that was the case. That checks out with everything that we've heard. Jonathan, you watched Ohio State. We're already at 9 minutes, so let's be tight here.
Yeah,
9 o'clock. Sorry.
This was strictly the highlight video that I found. Basically, was just of Tavian St. Clair and Julian Sayin, and I want to appreciate how this was broken down because it wasn't just pure highlights. There were some mistakes thrown into this one, and I think it kind of really settled what the belief of these two guys is exiting out of spring. The best way I would describe Julian Sayin's day is once he settled in and he kind of got over those nerves, he processed and he threw the ball. He distributed the football really well, is how I would put it. I wouldn't say that there's a whole lot of wow in it, but he put the ball where it needed to be, and he played on time.
I do want to say something about saying that I heard the quarterbacks coach mention this year. Everybody's talking about his release, how quick the release is, That's great. He's got one of the quickest releases you'll see in the world. However, even as a high school football player, I questioned how big is the arm 25 and beyond? Like, how explosive are we going to be on the big boy arm throws? I know you're extremely accurate and quick with the ball out of your hands 15, 20 yards and in, but how much of a big arm do we have? I think the offensive coordinator alluded to that when he was asked about Sayan's motion. Hey, the motion looks really quick, coach. Tell me what that means for the quarterback. And he says, hey, having a great motion's awesome, but we got to be able to reach portions of the field, and we've got to clean up some things mechanically to be able to have that type of juice down the field. I think that's something they've got to develop or as the body progresses. He's got to get bigger and stronger.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to say. Is that St. Clair was he's huge. He's athletic. I mean, he looks the part. If you put him and Sayan side by side, you would look at him and say, that's the guy that I would want playing quarterback, until you kind of watch it, and it's just all super raw. Like, he had 2 really bad mistakes, 2 really bad interceptions. One of them was nearly a pick 6. But once he kind of settled in, he had some really nice passes. The best way I would put it, though, is Sayan looks like the guy that is ready to start today, but the ceiling and everything else with St. Clair is what you're really attached to.
Did you see anything from the Kindholz kid?
No, it was
AKA Alex Moran?
No.
We didn't see nothing from him. That's the guy that Ryan Day says is neck and neck currently with Julian Sayan. So we'll see. I believe, like you do, and I think everyone in Columbus probably believes, Tavion St. Clair has the highest ceiling in the room.
Yeah.
It's just about when he's going to be ready.
A little
to play.
chaotic right now.
I really quick before we go to the local hour, I do have some nugs from the Tennessee scrimmage. Just comes directly from a source close to the program. Quote, defense was flying around. We didn't really have a whole ton on offense as far as schematics went. Kept it super basic, but some guys really flashed on both sides. They think Ty Redmond, corner out of Milton High School, 3-star, 6'2.5", 200 pounds. They think he's going to be a ball player. They think they found him one. Now, I alluded to this with the source. Actually, I think Tennessee's done a great job hitting home runs on some of these 3-stars, man. Some of their best players are lesser than recruits. Their big leader on defense this year is going to be Jeremiah Thielander. That's a guy that the rest of the SEC was like, man, let him go to Tennessee. He's going to be a good football player for them this year. Was last year for them. All right, it's number 22, the Mike linebacker. James Pierce, former 3-star high school recruit for them, turned him into a first-round projected draft pick. They have hit on some of these recruits. Sounds like Ty Redmond might be another one of those. We got a whole nother hour coming up for you guys. Right now, it is our best hour, the local hour. We finna talk that dog.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You like that? You really like that? Let's shut up and grab some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back in to the local hour. I do want to address this at the top. Jaden Ott, a running back from Cal, just entered the transfer portal. Guys, I don't think Georgia's going to be in the market for a transfer quarter or running back. All right, so I don't know what other people are saying. The people that I talked to said that if anything, they might have some departures for the room. They're not going to be out here adding bodies. They feel like they're good there. I mean, there's enough carries to go around in that room of guys that they've invested in that they need to get run. So there's that. Welcome to the local hour. I love this segment we're going to start with today. A little perception versus reality. We got 2 guys in the studio today that were in participation working on Saturday. We have another one that was sitting on his butt reading Twitter. So we're going to see how the perception versus the actual reality sounds tonight on the network. We also have our biggest spring game winners. 3 things you feel good about leaving spring practice, or at least things that you have learned leaving spring practice. Overall experience at the new spring game. We'll talk about that tonight, and we will detail how we believe Georgia's offensive style might be changing this year. But I want to start with this perception versus reality segment. I like this segment a lot. So here's the deal. Jonathan was not in the stadium on Saturday. He was watching on social media like the overwhelming majority of this audience was, okay? Reading the updates, reading the Twitter timeline, seeing what the world was talking about, developing his own perception. Now, Kirby and I, the hardworking individuals on this stage, were there in person. So we have a reality aspect to this. So here's how it's going to work. Mr. I Don't Work is going to tell us his perception. Mr. We Did Work is going to tell us the reality of the situation. Mr. I Don't Work. First of all, how was your vacation?
Oh, it's fantastic. Thank you.
I don't feel like I have to let the people know that we're joking. You work extremely hard, but I feel like I have to let
So
people
nice
know.
to be on the other end of the
Yeah,
I don't mind it.
So we don't get an HR violation. And someone's like, wow, he really picks on Jonathan. That's why he doesn't work. Welcome back. Glad to have you back. The vibes in the studio, much higher. What was your perception this weekend?
First one, Colby Young is the X factor in this offense.
I would say reality says that's a fact.
I would say reality would indicate that's true. It seemed like most deep balls went his way. He made plays on. He had 2 touchdowns. One got called back. It ended up not being a touchdown, but still an impressive grab. Made a lot of really big plays there. And everything that we've heard leading up to the spring game was he's really taken initiative to become that leader in the wide receiver room.
Every spring game, I ask sources a version of the same question: who's going to be your best player? To a man, almost all of them, Colby Young, before the spring game. And then he goes out and does what he does. So I would say the perception that Colby Young is an X factor is indeed reality. Okay. So you hit the nail on the head there. Didn't even have to be in the stadium to know that Colby Young was out here balling.
All right, Twitter is 1 for 1 right now.
All right.
Number 2, both QBs had their flashes, both QBs being Puglisi and Stockton.
So I don't want to kill all Puglisi stock. However, I don't recall a flash from Ryan Puglisi on Saturday.
I think the one really impressive deep ball I had was immediately overshadowed by the catch that was made when CJ Wiley had a one-handed grab. I think it's very clear that the offense runs smoother with Gunnar Stockton at the helm. I think Puglisi kind of is. It just didn't look like he was necessarily ready to take this offense over.
And how could he be? This is a guy who hadn't practiced.
Again, and I'm not trying to discount it in any way. I think the youth and inexperience that Puglisi has had, remember, he was injured for the majority of the season last year, didn't even have a spring last year. It showed on Saturday that he might not necessarily be what everyone thought he is. That's not to say he can't become what everyone thinks he is.
I want to do something. Since we're not allowed to show video, I want to show a photo right quick, okay? This is Ryan Puglisi throwing in 7-on-7, okay? This is no rush, no offensive line. Everybody sees how's his base is right here. We got a nice bent front knee, okay? We're balanced. We're in the balls of our feet, not on the toes of our feet, okay? Zoom us back out right quick. All right, and I want to show you what the mechanics looked like once we actually started to play real football, okay? We started to stand up on our toes, we started to lean a good bit, and we started to be a little bit inaccurate because of our body positioning and how we were leaning and our overall mechanics through our lower body, okay? This is something we talk about on this network quite a bit. Now, I didn't actually save the photo because he was leaning so bad, so let me pull up Lightroom. Nonetheless, I saw a lot of this on Saturday. All right. I saw a lot of this. Do we have a ball anywhere in the studio? Doesn't matter, okay? I saw a lot of leaning out over my body doing this, okay? And the reason being, we were working from our left to our right, and we're getting through the progression as fast as we can, and now all of a sudden, we're throwing every ball leaning onto our toes or leaning out in front of our body instead of being nice and solid in our foundation, doing what we call in this network, tying our feet to our eyes. Wherever our eyes go, our feet want to be right behind them so we're ready to strike when we get there. When I see quarterbacks leaning up on their toes in their progression, it indicates to me that young man has been told, hey, we got to hurry up. We got to start playing faster. We got to start playing faster. And we're still thinking while we're working through our progressions. Just thoughts on that.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where it was very obvious his internal clock was rushed. You saw a lot of checkdowns that he took where it's like you probably didn't need to come off that so quickly to the point where you didn't even give the linebackers time to drop into coverage. Like there were a lot of times on Saturday where we saw a check down or a throw that Ryan Puglisi made go for a loss of 3 or 4 simply because it was just so quickly giving it to the running back.
Now, I do want to preface this and say that this is indeed a screen pass. So we're trying to get this out as fast as humanly possible. But these were a lot of the mechanics and the situations that I saw Ryan Puglisi's body in on Saturday when working through our reads. You see how we're on our toes? You see how we're not in a powerful base like we were in that 7-on-7 clip that I showed you, or photo that I showed you? I saw a lot of this even when working through our progressions in the pocket. And it doesn't matter how physically gifted we are, guys. It really doesn't, okay? What matters is how well and how consistent our mechanics are when live bullets start to fly. Here's what I told the guys before the show, and I 100% truly believe this. Ryan Puglisi is going to be great, okay? I think with his work ethic, his mentality, his competitive nature, and his physical traits, he's going to be great. I just don't know when it's going to happen, and I do think that the initial start to this, we sputtered out of the gates, which means our perception and our expectations for him have to reflect that, right? This is a football player who just went through his first spring practice ever, all right? He didn't get to play last year, all right? Didn't get really to practice at a high rate last year either. So this was, and by all accounts, he progressed really, really rapidly this spring. We just didn't quite see it all come together during the spring game. But, man, when I hear older players start to talk about his retention of the offense, when I start to hear older players say that Ryan can now answer their questions when they have questions, those are all positive signs, and the arrow's pointing up.
I think it's also an indication that the fan base, some sectors of the fan base might have irresponsibly built this up. We talked about, there was a lot of people out here saying, hey, I think Pugga needs to be the starter. I think Puglisi gives us a better chance of winning, having never seen him play. Yeah. And not to say that Puglisi is not good, but we have to remember that this is a kid who has very, very little experience, and it looked like that on Saturday.
It should be noted, they completed less than 50% of their passes as a team on Saturday. Okay, so they weren't completing at a high rate anyways. What was another perception you had?
Sokovia White's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
That is a correct perception. He made a lot of plays.
I don't think there is a combination of explosivity and natural hands in the wide receiver room quite like Zacoby. Colby doesn't catch the ball as naturally as Zacoby does. Zachariah Branch does not catch the ball as naturally as Zacoby does. And I know he's 5'8", but damn if that dude ain't competitive at the catch point. He got Ellis 2 plays in a row.
He gave Ellis Robinson fits towards that fourth quarter.
And I got photos of Ellis is in the pocket. Like, Ellis is like fingertips on the ball. The combination of soft and strong hands, I think that's what separates elite wide receivers. We have soft hands, meaning the ball never double catches on us. As soon as it touches our tips, we're there. All right, and then once the ball's in our hands, we have such strong hands that it's never getting knocked out.
That's good to hear. The next one, Daniel Harris looked like the future starter next to Dalen Everett.
Daniel Harris had a lot of really good, and I'll say this, every defensive back had a lot of really, really good, not just plays, but like stints of play where it's like, oh my God, they look for 5 or 6 plays, like, damn, they've really locked it down. There were also 3 or 4 plays where it's, oh, they got dunked on there. Oh, they got beat. Or, oh, they got, did not look great. I would say Daniel Harris fell into this category. He had the first interception of the game. It was a deep touchdown corner pass to Gunnar Stockton from Gunnar Stockton in the end zone. Played the ball well, got the interception, and that kind of set the tone for the defense at first part. A little later in the game, he got beat by, I think it was Colby Young. I think he got beat by Zachariah on the goal line at once. So it was a very much give and take example. I think Daniel Harris flashed and looked really, really good. I wouldn't go as far to say that he locked up that opposite corner spot from Dalen Everett.
By the way, Daniel Harris is one of those football players that the common fan's going to look at and go, holy hell, how is that guy not a top 10 selection? He looks the part, man.
Yeah.
And he can run. My God. You got another one?
Yeah. Bo Walker popped. This is one that felt like it's been building up throughout spring as well.
I would say that
we're big Chauncey Bowers guys.
I was going to say I came away from this spring going, Bo Walker, good running back, going to play at Georgia, an SEC starter. I was more impressed with Chauncey Bones.
Yeah, look, man, to be a serviceable running back, a good running back in this conference, you've got to be able to take +2 yard carries and make them +6s, right? Do what Dejon Edwards did his entire career. To be a playable, serviceable back. Bo Walker does that already as a true freshman. Now, to be a game breaker, to be a, quote, elite back, to be one of these backs like Georgia's had in the past. I think the last one of these that checks the box for me all around, DeAndre Swift. To be DeAndre Swift, we got to be a sub 4.6 guy. We got to be a sub 4.55 guy. We got to be a guy that in open field can outrun backside safeties. And I know everyone's seen the clip of Bo Walker sticking his foot in the ground on a truck toss and picking up 20 yards. And it looks great, except for the fact that the backside safety catches him like he's walking. All right, like he's walking and standing still. The backside safety runs him down immediately in open grass. All right, so I think Bo Walker is going to be Dejon Edwards if he's not already. But is he going to be DeAndre Swift? I don't know that. All right, what I do know about Chauncey Bowens, at 225 pounds, that son of a gun ran 10.78 in high school football. All right, in the high school track. That dude's got go-go juice. All right, and that's what plays at a really, really high rate in the SEC. I think Bowens is the game breaker behind Frazier. I think Bo Walker is a great back. Now, is he going to be a superstar? I don't know.
I think Bo Walker is going to be the type of guy that, like you said, the Dejon Edwards death march, where it's like we're deep in the third, fourth quarter, and it's just like, damn, they gave this guy the ball 4 or 5 times in a row, and our defensive line just so spent they couldn't do anything, and he just ate us alive for 40 yards on 6 carries.
And by the way thicker than Dejon. This is a big dude.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really thick.
Now, wasn't Dejon fairly thick coming out of Colquitt?
Yeah, and then he lost weight in college.
So maybe the body type changes in there, but I like I said, I came away with this thinking that Chauncey Bowens was a little bit more versatile for it.
Yeah.
He did a lot of things in the pass game, but then in the fourth quarter and the second half, made a lot of really impressive plays in the run game. His cuts are dead. I mean, I don't know who it was, but he ran an out route and absolutely dumped someone off at one point. Like made him like the slip and fall, got to brace yourself with your hand type thing. So
you got any more?
Oh yeah, I got 2 more. The freshman wide receivers had their ups and downs, but still look promising.
I would say CJ had nothing but ups. I thought CJ had a great day. I mean, tough contested catches were my question about CJ. Mm-hmm. And we have a one-hander where we kind of mossed somebody. Like that answers my questions.
Yeah, and
I thought Taylor had a drop in 7-on-7.
Okay.
And so, and even people in the building were like, yeah, he was a little nervous before the game.
I didn't see anything about Roldan. Did he do anything?
he had a couple of truck sweeps, actually. They gave him the...
He had one target downfield, and it was overthrown by 6 or 7 yards.
And I hate to do it, but they gave Lennon Roldan the... Here's a Lab McConkey jet sweep real quick for you. And didn't go well, but defense had snuffed it out pretty well. So,
gotcha.
I mean, honestly, that's a fairly reasonable take anyway. So, yeah, there were ups and downs from the freshmen. It's very obvious that it was 17 and 18-year-old kids out there playing. So, yeah.
All right. Good Lord. Final one. Jeremy Bell is the next great walk-on.
It's all them Coors Lights mans was drinking on the...
Oh, no, Corona.
He was crushing
you
them
were
on
hitting
the
the
Coronas.
Ronas with or without the lime?
Oh, it got to be with a lime.
Bottle or glass?
Glass.
Ugh, I can't do beer.
I'm a lime in the bottle Corona guy.
Why'd you stop drinking?
Well, I'm just talking about back in the day. You don't think I remember?
Or you're saying like it's present tense.
No. But I mean, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. That's kind of what they tell you. Keep hitting the meetings. That kind of thing.
But yeah, Jeremy Bell, going to be the next great walk-on.
Reality. I think it's confirmed. Dude went for 3 touchdowns in scrimmage 2, I was told on Saturday. I was told he balled by sources, but I didn't get the actual number. So they couldn't guard him in scrimmage 2. And in the actual game day scrimmage, GDay scrimmage, I mean, he ran by Joe Aguero like he was standing still.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the talent's there. Obviously he's performing well. My question is, what is the avenue for him to become the next great walk-on? Yeah. It felt like a lot of these, I mean, the Stetson Bennett crunk, we don't even have to go over that. It was such an uphill climb to get him there. I mean, even Dan Jackson, for the most part, had to kind of crawl and scratch and claw his way to get the starting spot. Now, once he got it, he earned it, proved his worth and earned it. But with this room, the amount of talent that we have around him, I don't necessarily know where the avenue is for Jeremy Bell to come out and be like, that's a signed and stamped, starter for or a rotational player. Yeah. Not to say he's not playing well, but we live in a college football world where, let's be honest, they're invested elsewhere financially, and I think that also plays into it.
That's it.
All right, man. I love that segment. I really hate when perception and reality aren't connected, right? There seems to be false narratives being created. I think that really, really stinks. False narratives really, really stink. And I don't know about you guys, man, but I mean, the worst thing that stinks is a little bit of body odor. And the best way to get rid of that is with our friends over at Mando. From the founders of Lumi, Mando whole body deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long-lasting 72-hour control that actually stops odor before it starts. Best part is you can put Mando anywhere. You can put it in your pits, your packages, your feet, your skin folds, your back, your knees, everywhere. To top it off, Mando's cologne quality scents were created with men in mind. Pro tip, try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It's a game changer. Shout out to our friends over at Mando. Use promo code FGN over there today. You get a free 40% off.
What's funny?
Skin folds.
Who got stinky knees, bro?
You ever smelled your knee?
You ain't got a little pitting action going on in your knee pits on a hot Saturday day?
I've never been like, damn, what's that smell like? Oh,
You never reached down and felt a little bit of moistness in your knee pit?
No, I
I
can't.
got a little something right now.
I mean, maybe
I
like
can use that Mando, baby.
maybe if I'm like squatting for a long time, or maybe if like you've been like taking a knee in the grass long enough. But on a normal day, I don't like go like, damn, my knee really stinks right now.
Yeah, see, you ain't got them problems like some of our sweatier individuals.
I guess that's true. I don't really sweat that much, so
Yeah, it's because you don't work.
apparently.
In-person thoughts, Kirby. We were there in person. Now, I want your first thought. What did you come up with a takeaway of GDay since you wanted to skip out on our post-GDay live stream?
Whoa.
I mean,
I was wondering.
The chat noticed
Now, what we are
only
not-
Brooksy sitting in the press conference room with my boy Ryan Curley at
What
Dog
we are
Post.
not going to do is gaslight the audience. I'll give you all a story very quickly. Walking in from pressers, he says, all right, let's get this written up. I said, all right, I'm on it. I'm writing the entire Kirby presser. And he says, you know what? How about instead of you and I doing the live show, you go and finish all the writing. I'll handle the live show. And I said, sounds good. If you check Bulldogs on SI from April 12th, I had like 9 articles posted.
Career high?
No, not a career high. So let's not get this narrative that I was like, hey man, I don't really want to do the live show. But either way, my first takeaway was that it was very much a spring game in the environment of that. I felt like it was kind of a lackadaisical environment, not just from the coaches and players, but from the fans as well. And what do you expect when there's 40,000 people in a 97,000 stadium?
93?
I think it's like 90.
93
Depends on
Somewhere
the day.
between 90 and 100. They've claimed to get 98 in there before. I did have another takeaway though, in that it was about this offense. I feel like this offense is going to be predicated on if we can't absolutely dunk on you, take your head off with a deep ball, we are going to settle for intermediate to underneath throws. We're not going to really push you over the middle. We're not going to do a lot of deep out routes, not touch passes here. That was my main takeaway first.
We talked about on our show leading up to the spring eval period, right after the Notre Dame game. We talked about Gunnar Stockton's skill sets, leading me to believe that I would install what we are calling around this network a ripper and runner offense. The runner coming from his legs. We didn't get to see that during the spring game. We know he's going to add into the run game. We know he's going to balance counts. We know those things are going to happen, particularly on the short yardage areas of the game, especially as Ryan Puglisi continues to develop. We'll talk more about that here in just a second. But what Kirby's talking about, this ripper and runner offense, I think we saw inklings of it this weekend. All right. At GDay, there were two types of passes. There were passes that were thrown 40 yards down the field, a conversion of that, back shoulder fades, we're including those into that, and what Kirby's talking about, all these underneath types of routes. So I think based off their personnel this year, this is the type of offense that they are going to install. We are going to be vertically based. Okay, we are going to give options to our wide receivers against middle and middle of the field open and middle of the field closed our defenses, right? If the middle of the field is open, Zachariah Branch, you have the opportunity to bend that thing in. If we're facing cover 3, we're going to run that thing vertically. On the backside, okay, we might have a Y right here. Used to, they were deep crossers, right? They took this guy, number 2 wide receiver, ran him about right behind the linebacker's depth, all right, because over here, they might have been running something a little bit like a smash concept, right, last year. We're going to read this side of the field. We're going to work the progression backside, okay? Last year, those progressions backside were a lot of deep overs like I just talked about, and that backside dig from the number 1 receiver on the backside of the
the formation, all right? Now, this year, like I said, we're going to be, I would imagine, a lot more vertically based with the weapons that you have. We're going to push up the field, all right? We might swing backs over here to be check down options. That's a lot of what you saw Saturday. If things didn't open for us down the field, we're going to check the ball out. Now, the reason I think this offense is going to be predicated this way, everything underneath, we're going to threaten vertically, and then we're going to run the comeback. We're going to run the comeback, get you to walk up, and then threaten vertically. We're going to run the speed out and then sell you on that pump Oscar. All right, we're going to do all of these things to get you to bite down and then get you vertically. The reason being, I think Gunnar Stockton's best ability is to throw those line balls, all right, to throw those things 100% confidently and throw it with the juice that he's got in his body, all right? I think he's most accurate when he does that. So we're going to have this hitch offense. We're going to have this out and up offense. We're going to have this vertical offense, all right? And everything else is going to be predicated off of checking down up underneath. So I think on top of that, okay, we're also going to be moving the pocket a lot more this year because the quarterback is who he is. Last couple of years, I felt like Georgia felt their passing offense worked best from an umbrellaed pocket, right? A launched point, a designated launch point. We're going to leave Carson Beck in the pocket. We're going to protect him well. We're going to allow him to read the field, progress, throw the ball accurately, all right? Prior to him, what did they do? Prior to him, they manipulated the launch point quite a bit, right? They moved their quarterback quite a bit with Stetson Bennett. They got under center and ran naked boots, okay? They started doing things like this. I think they returned to this again this year. You look like you got a question maybe. Are you good?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay, the other thing we talked about is balancing run counts, okay? Something that you didn't get to see on Saturday during GDay, all right? The last several years, if Georgia were running inside zone this way, there was no threat of the quarterback out the back. So to occupy the tight end, they were running a lot of split, or the backside defensive end, they were running a lot of what we call split zone action, taking that H-back and blocking that defensive end on the backside. However, this year, right, we might not have to use that H-back. We might not have to put him in there. Now we can stay in 11 personnel. We can stay outside, right, and we can keep this defensive end responsible and disciplined, right, with that quarterback threat. Now, is Gunnar Stockton going to run for a 65-yard scramble on quarterback draw against Auburn? Probably not. Okay, I don't think he's a 4.65 runner when he's jogging like Stetson Bennett was at the NFL Combine. However, on 2nd and 4, that backside defensive end is going to have to hold true. Okay, on 3rd and 2, that backside defensive end is going to have to hold true, which means if we create movement on that front side, all right, and we get up to that front side inside linebacker, guess who's not going to be able to make the play? These two guys. Now, you saw this pop up against Texas. We've talked about this on this network. Against Texas, this was this was Anthony Hill, and this was Colin Simmons, 2 5-star football players who in the first half wreaked havoc. Georgia could not run the football. In the second half, Gunnar Stockton gets in there, and guess what these two guys are told the entire time during halftime? Hey, 14 might be coming into the game. 14 can run the football. 14 might be able to pull it. So the entire second half, these two guys are standing flat-footed doing like this, and meanwhile, the bitch is running front side for 45 yards. Okay, that type of stuff is going to get added back into this offense.
And that was another one of my takeaways from GDay. I felt like they kind of limited how much they let Gunnar Stockton carry the ball. And I get it. Why would you? You're going to run the ball in a spring game with the quarterback. That's a wasted rep at that point because no one's going to fill that gap hard. Gunnar Stockton's not going to run. You can't tackle the quarterback. But I do feel like he's going to be much more of a component in the running game. I also have this.
I want to add on to that. I think Gunnar's usage of his legs is solely dependent upon the development of Ryan Puglisi. They are not going to run Gunnar next year if they don't feel like if we have to play Ryan, we can go win a national title.
See, I would love to agree with you on that, but the way he played in the SEC championship, very much did not play like, hey, you're the second quarterback right now. If you go down, we're on QB3. To the point where, I mean, he got his head taken off in overtime, and they said, all right, put in Carson Beck, who just tore his UCL.
Can we all agree that the SEC championship in December as the backup getting inserted for the dude who just blew out his elbow is slightly different than being the starter week 1 against Marshall?
I absolutely agree with that. And I agree, I think Marshall in those types of instances, you're not going to see that as much. But when you need him, they're going to let Gunnar Stockton run the ball because I think it's going to affect how the offense goes. Another takeaway I have from this game, and we didn't necessarily talk about this pre-show, but I saw a lot more of Nate Frazier than I was expecting to.
We got a super chub
us actually from someone who gave me an in-person super chub. Got a cash handshake on Saturday.
She was cool.
I didn't keep the money. Mr. I Don't Works does. Which one of that is you? Which one of you guys is that?
I didn't give money.
What's the name here? Logan what?
Logan Miller.
Logan Miller. Shout out to Logan Miller. My man hit me with that in-person super chub on Saturday. All right, I'm going to put an underline on Logan Miller. I want everybody to see Logan Miller on the board because my man went the extra mile, all right, and hit me with that in-person super chub, little cash handshake. I felt like a 5-star recruit on a USC visit.
Ooh. Dang. But no, as I was saying,
My B.
saw a lot more of Nate Frazier than I thought we were going to.
Yeah.
We went through pretty much the entire spring talking amongst ourselves like they've got to have this guy in bubble
Wrap.
right?
They did. They had him in the rib protectors.
Nate Frazier carried the ball probably 12 times on Saturday and got 5 or 6 pass completions his way. We saw more of Nate Frazier than we saw of Cash Jones.
Yeah.
So that was a takeaway I had.
What did he tell you after the game? I'm not fat. I just look like it.
So I'll actually have to tweet this video. Everyone's coming off the field. It's after the game. I've got my camera. The players running off, and he walks right in front of my camera, and you kind of see him side eye, and like can tell the camera's on him. And he's taking off a flak jacket. It looks like.
Yeah.
And he goes, "I'm not fat. I promise. I just look fat right now." Very, very interesting interaction with Nate, but very funny.
I don't think I've ever taken a photo of Nate Frazier and him not been smiling.
Yeah,
Dude's got so much juice.
he's a happy man.
Let's continue with these in-person thoughts. You had a point about the running backs being used out of the backfield, Kirby. I think this has a lot to do with what we just talked about. When everyone on the offense is pushing vertically, somebody's got to be a check down option. That's more than likely going to be the running back this year.
Very, very much so. But it was also like a lot of quick outs, a lot of design routes, not just, hey, you're the exit strategy here. It seemed like they were very comfortable putting running backs in the backfield, catching the ball. We talked about how last year, start of the season with the Clemson, and it was kind of like, who's going to catch the ball in the backfield right now? Trevor Etienne wasn't there. Nate Frazier had a couple of drops in that Clemson game. A lot of examples of that, but it seems this way like Chauncey Bowens had some catches. Nate Frazier was in there. Obviously, Cash Jones is the epitome of catching the ball out of the backfield as a running back. So very, very interesting to see on Saturday.
I have some offensive line thoughts. I really liked what I saw from Bo Hewley from a size standpoint. It's a football player that needed to put on weight. He's got to be 310 now. I mean, he looks like a SEC offensive tackle. There were years there where he kind of looked like an SEC power forward playing tackle. He's put on weight. I also like what I saw from him from an execution standpoint. Really hard to judge everything that's going on in the offensive line when you're watching through a camera lens. However, you can see the tackles. Whether or not the tackles are winning or losing, you can see. I thought he did a good job on Saturday. I think it's really, really big for Georgia, the idea that they've already got Juan Gaston bought into potentially playing guard as a freshman. He started, or not started, he was the number 2 right guard on Saturday. And you want to talk about making a 6'3", 310-pound human look small. That's what Marcus Harrison and Juan Gaston did to Cortez Smith at that center position, and Malachi Tolliver for that matter. Those second-string centers look like midgets out there because the 2 guys standing next to them are damn near 6'8", 330 pounds. But I do believe that come September, if Juan Gaston's starting at right guard, I wouldn't be shocked, okay? Now, that is a 3-way battle, in my opinion, when Daniel Calhoun gets back and healthy from his foot injury. It was in a foot or an ankle. Either way, he was in a boot on Saturday. When he gets back, Michael Unai played there this week as the first-team guard, and then seeing what happens with Juan Gaston's development. But getting that future first-round draft pick at tackle to buy in and play guard as a true freshman, I think speaks a lot to that room and what they can get out of it. I thought the protection looked really, really clean Saturday considering they threw the ball 75 times. Last year, we left spring game going, where's the protection? Mm-hmm. And I even said something about it, and then I get a message from an offensive coach that says, hey, dummy. It was basically a pseudo one-on-one pass rush all damn day. Like they knew we were throwing the ball. So guys got off. Remember watching Chaz Chambliss in the spring game last year? Going, oh my God.
What happened to this guy?
He is murdering Ernest Green. What is this?
Now.
Well, it's Chaz Chambliss knowing for a fact it's a pass play and getting after it. But
to be fair, though, he did go on to lead the team in sacks.
He did.
24.
He did. Chaz Chambliss was Himothy last year. Got another super chub. I'm going to get here in a second there. Cyber Proxy. Cyber Proxy on the board? Like I've written that one.
No idea.
Anyways, we'll get to that in just a second. Zion Branch, first off the bus. Zion Branch looks like a damn dude. Zion Branch looks like Richard LeCount if Richard LeCount looked physically like a 5-star. Richard LeCount was a 5-star out of high school, but Richard LeCount was always 5'10 and 3/4, 190 pounds soaking wet. All right, this ain't that one. Zion Branch is all of 6'1", all of 205 pounds, and all of the type of human that walks onto the field and you have to say, hey, who the hell is number 2? Who is that guy? That guy looks awesome. That's what Zion Branch looks like.
Not only did he look awesome, he played awesome.
Yeah.
Bro was flying around on Saturday. I was very impressed with that. And we kind of talked about how he's really been a pleasant surprise, not because they had low expectations, but they just didn't know what to expect from him. So it seems like they really found a guy there.
Yeah, it's always interesting, like, going through spring, like, when, especially for, like, transfer players, because when Zion Branch initially commits to Georgia, it's like, he's kind of been banged up over his career, feels like it might be just a depth piece, not really sure if it's going to be anything this year.
We just needed his brother.
Especially then after they go and add Adrian Maddox, and then they go and get the Harris kid out of Miami. It's like, okay, so they're still making moves at safety, and then come to find out he might be the guy out of all of them that ends up taking that job.
You kind of hit on my next note. I was paying very close attention to what they were doing with Maddox and Harris, particularly with that second unit. Who was playing where? Jaden Harris seemed to be playing more of a traditional safety role, and Adrian Maddox was playing that star position with that second unit. Obviously, Jonell Aguero was playing that star unit with that first unit, with Ja'Cory Thomas and KJ Bolden back at the back end at safety, rotating Daniel Harris, DeMelo Jones, and Ellis Robinson at corner. Ellis got to start with the first unit. In the second half, DeMelo played with that first unit alongside Daniel Harris. So that was kind of the rotation that we expected. That was the rotation that we got at corner. Thought all of them, we already mentioned, I thought all corners played really, really well in this football game. I didn't think anybody was lost. I didn't think anybody looked like a fool. I didn't think anybody got nabbed on too hard. I thought it was all competitive in the spot type of play at the corner position. However, that's not how you're measured at Georgia. It's making plays on the ball, right? Are you actually being in the position to make the plays? The baseline requirement, making the play, is the actual check as to whether or not you're the guy. Speaking of which, I thought Jonell competed his butt off in the first half. I thought he competed his butt off in the second half, but in the second half, he got beat. I mean, he got beat several times in the area that he don't need to be getting beat on. Jonell Aguero is never going to get made look bad on anything underneath. Jonell is getting ran by pretty consistently by slot receivers, and that's where everyone's going to test him. I told you guys pre-show, I almost felt like it was we're going to find out second half for Jonell. I'm not saying they schemed him up, but if I were the University of Georgia, if I were Kirby Smart, if I were Glenn Schumann, in that setting, I would want to know, hey, can we run by our own guy right now? Yeah. And if we can, we know that it's still something that we need to address.
Well, especially considering, like, we have talked about how will he play on third down? Will they bump somebody else in one of the corners? Will Dalen go play star on third and longs? So that certainly would make sense why they would try and get that answer in the spring game.
And for all intents and purposes, I think he played really, really well on Saturday. But there were a couple moments where it's like, that's what we're afraid of happening. So...
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think they confirmed their suspicions there, even though there has been, like I said, some I wouldn't say drastic improvement, but there's been noticeable improvement in his coverage abilities. The biggest question about that position, obviously the other big question defensively, is who's going to play next to KJ Bolden. I, at this point, think it's going to be Zion Branch. I think if they had to play tomorrow, Ja'Cory would start, Zion would play. So there's that. Cool moments. Do you have any cool moments on Saturday, Kirby? I got 4 cool moments.
Nate Frazier was definitely a cool moment. That was pretty funny.
Him signing a forehead?
Signing the forehead, telling me I'm not fat, I promise.
Yeah.
Cool moment, CJ Wiley's one-handed catch. I think that was probably the biggest wow play of the game. Mm-hmm. Cool moment also, I would say, is just always the intro of it.
Whose phone's ringing?
It's mine.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's just...
No, it's just...
It's okay.
Was it important?
No.
Oh, okay. South Carolina news just hit. I don't know what that is.
Could be WNBA draft news.
Yeah, I think so.
That's exciting.
Honestly.
Look at me.
Yeah, Popo. Yeah, I think it is.
Locked in on everything.
All right, I had cool moments. I'm standing on the west end zone, closest to the big scoreboard board. My God. Standing closest to the scoreboard, and I'm taking a photo of a play that's going on, and all of a sudden I get hit by a bear paw on the left shoulder. And I turn around, it's the mullet wearing Tate Ratledge. And Tate makes a joke about how I bet that photo sucked. And they're walking all of the seniors out of the locker room to have the award ceremony for their rings. Tate's the first one. And then Tate hits me with the dap and a big bro hug. And then right after him is Jared Wilson. And then right after him is Arian Smith. And then right after him is Jalen Walker. And then all of a sudden, I realized, well, I guess we're doing the full gambit here. We went 20 for 20, dapping the Brodies up as they
20 for 20.
I mean, a good 20 for 20. I feel bad because the walk-on that said something is definitely watching right now because he told me he watches every night. And man, I don't know his name.
The one that was at
You didn't have to admit
the pro day.
I'm a full forthcoming guy. No, not the short wide receiver that was there. But anyways, yeah, had a full dap up bro hug with all the Brodies from last year's roster.
That's awesome.
pretty sick.
Yeah, I think to me, when things like that happen, it confirms some of the things that I think about our coverage, which is we do things differently. We talk about football, and I think football players respect that tremendously. The idea that this is a football-based show, not a let's see what we can say to get people to watch us type of show. So there is that. Another cool thing, I signed an autograph on a Zen can. That was dope. That guy gets the show. Now it was a spearmint can, not a cinnamon can. I think I want to start the Cinnazin trend. I want that to be my thing. I want cinnamon Zen stock to go through the roof because Brooksy's out here pounding the Cinnazin.
But did he throw one in the air and try and catch it in his mouth after?
No, he didn't. But he did throw me the can, and I'm going to be honest, a delightful signature. It came out really, really clean on that Zen can. So that was dope. We already talked about it. The Super Chub handshake. That was cool as shit.
That's awesome.
Not very often you getting, dollar handshakes out at a football game. And the other one, GT Killer 82 in the chat right now. Brody had the sweatshirt drip on. He had the shut up and grind the tape sweatshirt on.
Dang.
And guess what? When you show up in the merch, you get photos. You get photos when you show up in the merch. You ain't got to ask, hey, bro, where the flick's at? I'm going to hit you with it too. So, yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, so shout out to that. Those were all cool moments from GDay.
I like that.
Biggest winners, who do you got?
I had a couple of lists on this. The first one I had for the biggest winners, obviously, I feel like London Humphreys. He's the one wide receiver name where we kind of talked about was going to be the pop, where it's like wasn't getting talked about as much heading into the spring game. Obviously, getting talked about now. He had 2 touchdowns, had that 50-some-odd yard bomb from Coulter Ginn. Really, really solid day from London Humphreys. Next winner I have.
I forgot to mention that. The Coulter Ginn's ball to London Humphreys on that sail route, probably the best ball that was thrown all day. Granted, it was a sack. But man, I mean, Adrian Maddox blitzing free off the edge, sticks his feet in the ground, throws a damn dot on the run, Strider dot, as we call it around this network. It was a beautiful ball from Coulter Ginn.
Funny you mentioned that. I have Coulter Ginn as the other winner of the day. I think that I think that when you come out of a public scrimmage and the fan base collectively goes, "Oh, is he battling for X position now?" You had a really, really good day. We know how overreactive the fan base can be, but he looked good when he was in there.
Speaking of overreacting the fan base can be, I'm in the middle of a live show, and the chat's like, I read that Hezekiah Melander just balled this weekend.
No.
Hezekiah had like 2 drives, one of which had a 60-yard scramble in it in which he was touched down at the line of scrimmage. I don't mean to throw water on the Hezekiah Melander fire, but it goes back to that discussion of perception versus reality.
Yes, it does.
What you think you hear might not always be true. Hezekiah Melander's going to have a promising future at Georgia. It's just not right now.
Yeah, I mean, now
that's okay.
Now, during that 6-yard run, he looked very athletic, very promising, but that's a 2-yard gain at best in a real SEC football game. So,
any other winners?
I have Jeremy Bell as the winner. We talked about him a little bit. Could be the walk-on story for Georgia this year. And then the obvious winner for me, we talked about him. He's the X factor potentially, Colby Young. I mean, after not seeing the field for going on, 8 or 9 months now, you come back, you're presumed to be the leader in the room with all this talent. And, oh, by the way, you balled out in your first appearance in a Georgia uniform since late September, early
Alabama
October.
game,
Early
right?
October.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean, so he was the winner of that.
All right, I got 5 big winners. Starting with big winner number 1. I think it's Mike Bobo. I think Mike Bobo and what he has available on offense this year makes him a winner.
Okay.
And here's why. I think he's going to hunt vertically this year. I think the perfect stat line for Gunnar Stockton next year is going to be 17 for 32 for 340 yards.
Wow.
Like, we are explosive as shit. We are either completing 45-yard bombs, big post routes, big go routes. We're hitting 25-yard back shoulder fades, or after you back off, we're checking everything up underneath.
And this kind of fits into my hypothesis of saying how this year's offense kind of reminds me of what Bobo was doing in his earlier days at Georgia with like Aaron Murray, Malcolm Mitchell.
Those weren't 70% completion percentage offenses.
No, but they were one of the most explosive teams in all of college football. Aaron Murray, I think, finished second that year in explosive passing plays. So kind of aligning in that.
It goes back to a conversation I had with a source on Saturday. I'm sitting there standing on the sideline going, my God, every ball's going 50 yards downfield. Did you feel like this?
Yes.
I felt like every ball was either 5-yard speed out, 5-yard hitch, 55-yard nuke. And that's what I think they're going to play like this year.
I wanted to add this on my takeaways, but it's very clear that Gunnar Stockton is comfortable in this offense now.
Yeah.
We watched him in the Notre Dame game, and he didn't play bad. He played winning football, but there was a lot of times where it's like he is very clearly just trying to not be the reason that they lose this football game, which he wasn't, but he wasn't the reason they won it either. But this time around, he's letting it rip. And there were a couple of times where, let's be honest, he forced a couple of throws, and it was like, probably don't need to make that one, Gunnar. But he's very confident right now, and that's what you want to hear.
It got to a point where I said, God dang, you guys, every quarterback's throwing the piss out of it downfield. Like, y'all are hunting. Y'all are throwing the ball downfield. And the source looked at me and goes, if you saw what we saw every day in practice, you'd want to throw it downfield every play too. Ooh. So this has been consistent. And it's not because they don't have a good defensive back core. We told you about that. They're elite at corner right now, I think. They're just really good at wide receiver. They're winning downfield, and I think it alludes to what he does best. I felt like Gunnar was extremely accurate in that Notre Dame game downfield, 30 and beyond. He was putting the ball exactly where that ball to Arian Smith was one of the best deep balls thrown all year.
Yes,
down the sideline. So I think it really, really lends itself to what his skill sets are. That's why I think, again, Bobo's a big winner off what we saw Saturday. I'm with you. I think we get back to that being explosive down the field while leaning on a heavy run game when we're not. Number 2, Elijah Griffin's a big winner for me just because I didn't see enough from the other guys in that room to let me think otherwise than this statement right here. I think Elijah Griffin plays more snaps next year as a true freshman than any defensive tackle in college football. I think he's playing from week 1.
Yeah, it was hard for me to kind of get a gauge on the offensive line play just because doing live updates, sitting in the box, it's going so quick, it's a running clock. I didn't get a lot to see of what the offensive line looked like, but from everything I heard, you're absolutely right.
Number 3, big winner. I mean, it just sucks that Zachariah Branch is on the roster because I think it will deteriorate the pop that we could have seen in year 2 from a player like Zacoby White.
Yeah.
Zacoby White is a ball-playing SOB, man. He is a playmaking dude. Not to mention all the things that he can do with the ball after the catch as well. I can't speak more about Zacoby than I already have. I think he's going to be a great player. Number 4, J.J. Haney. Ooh. Buddy, if that kid don't look 14 in the face, I don't know what he is. He looks like a child. On a roster where they all look like grown men. They all look like 30-year-old dudes, except for when you see J.J. Haney take his helmet off. And you're like, hey, who's the middle schooler that they have on the roster? And then you watch him play, and you realize, holy shit, this guy's 6'4". He's he's probably 300 pounds, and he plays like his hair is on fire. I love J.J. Haney. I'm all about it. Give me that German.
I think it's worth – I mean, the fact that you're talking about him as one of the biggest winners from the spring game, considering that this is a guy still very new to football.
Yeah.
And you go to the University of Georgia and you're popping in your first spring game, that's a really good sign of what is to come for the rest of his career.
Number 5, big winner of the weekend. Give me Gunnar Stockton. I don't think Gunnar needed this. I think the rest of the program needed – a very clearly number 14's our guy. Please stop with the rest of the stuff. Let's get behind this dude and let's roll. I think he needed that. I don't know if he would ever admit that. I think he's self-aware, and I think he's self-confident, and I think he's fine. But being the quarterback at the University of Georgia when everybody wants your backup to play is not good for anybody. I don't care how mentally strong you are. I don't care how many cows you own. I don't care how many old school, old body F-150s you drive. All right. If the world's talking about you not being good enough and the next guy needing to play, eventually that's going to mess with your mental. I think Gunnar Stockton's a big winner this weekend.
I agree.
Love that.
All right, top 5 things we learned. Jonathan, I want you to jump in on this. This is all spring. Okay, what are the things that you learned this spring? Number 1 plays into what I just got done talking about. I learned this spring, confirmed before they even hit the practice field, Gunnar Stockton's the guy. I think that's important to know. Number 2, I think the defense is going to play a ton of dudes. They always play a bunch of guys, but I think they're going to rotate bodies at a higher rate than ever before. Trying to find who swims, okay? Trying to find who's going to be an actual dude. Number 3, I don't know if the talent on the top end is as good as it has been in years prior, but I feel like they're one of the deeper offensive line units in college football. I think they have more playable bodies in that offensive line unit than anybody else, particularly in the SEC and across the sport as a whole. Teams are having problems getting to 2 and 3 deep. Georgia feels like they are confident in playing their 3 deep. Number 4, the weapons are going to be a serious thing.
Yeah,
I am into the point of buying in and being all right. I think Georgia's going to be able to threaten people vertically this year. I think they're dudes. Now, we didn't get to see Noah Thomas because he sprained his AC joint very early on in the spring game Saturday, but they all accounts what he did during spring practices this year or this spring, he's going to be a dude. Number 5. Now, this was probably the biggest takeaway from me from Saturday and from the spring, or one of the bigger takeaways. If you're going to play defensive line at Georgia, you got to be tough as shit. Okay, you got to be a tough dude. All right, you can be a nice guy and you can be a guy that smiles a lot like Kristen Miller or a guy that's boisterous in front of a microphone like Jordan Davis, but you better be tough and you better be just a mean son of a bitch. I feel like this spring, Joseph Jonah-Ajonye checked that box for me. Okay, Joseph Jonah-Ajonye had surgery on his foot last fall. He was not expected to play at all this spring. He was expected to be in a boot and a limited participant. I was told this last week the medical staff was very up and down as to whether or not Joseph Jonah-Ajonye was going to get back into practicing and be available for the spring game on Saturday. I don't know if he played the most snaps out of the defensive end room, but I saw 99 on the field a shit ton on Saturday, and I was told he'd only been practicing for about 5 days. Okay? He pulled in the spring what Taron Ingram-Dawkins pulled in the middle of the season, coming out after a foot injury, telling coach, I'm going to play. I don't care if I get hurt. I have to play. I'm itching to play. This is big-time stuff from JJA, and I felt like he played well on Saturday.
I mean, it's good to hear at a position, too, where they're kind of talking about, we need depth here. So to hear a guy like that with that much youth is stepping up and showing that much heart, very, very good sign.
What'd you learn, Jay or Kirby? Actually, let's go to Jay Will. What'd you learn?
Thank you.
Yeah. Sitting on the bench for a little minute.
Hey, that's okay. Assets were put in the right places this offseason. I think we've kind of seen that pay out with the wide receiver room and the safety. I threw tight end into this conversation because you can say what you want, but it took assets to get a guy like Elias Williams and Ethan Barbour on this roster, and that looks like it's already going to pay off for you. Number 2, where there are concerns, Georgia has answers. They have obviously experimented and figured out some things at edge and defensive end, which was the biggest question for us coming into this spring. I mean, when we did our initial depth chart preview, it was noticeable of like, there's not a lot of names here. They got to figure something out. Then you get rumblings of Chris Cole's moving down. Now you got JJA back, which is a great sign. So there are answers there. And then offensive line. I mean, you lose multitude of starters offensively, guys that have been in this program for a long, long time. And now I would say today, seeing what the offensive line has done, knowing the names that have kind of shown promise, guys like Juan Gasson stepping up, you feel a lot better about the offensive line today than you did 2 months ago. Number 3, Gunnar Stockton is the prototypical Georgia football quarterback, I would say. Like, I don't know what it is about him, but he just screams like if a fan had to pick, and even Kirby Smart, like if you had to pick your quarterback, what he looks like, it's Gunnar Stockton, a guy that plays tough. And then also for the Kirby Smart aspect of this, when he gets in front of a microphone, he does not say anything at all, and that is a good thing. Number 4, the offensive roster immediately looked better in person. This was something not really different. More depth in the quarterback room. It feels a little bit more polished just because you have more guys in there right now. So the offensive depth chart in general just feels more put together. And then my final one, I feel like there's just something different about this team right now, and the best way that I can put it is it feels more organized than it did last year, and maybe that is because Gunnar is the starting quarterback and guys kind of rally around him. But I feel that just when I was at press conference, and then also when I was at practice, and just the things that you've heard about this program, it just feels organized and put together, and they're all meshing together. A good connection with this group this year. That's my final point.
You can't overestimate how important it is that your quarterback is a galvanizing member of your roster.
I was gonna
right.
say, that's
Your players want to rally around a guy, and I'm not saying that Carson did the opposite of this, but Gunnar does this at a higher rate amongst his teammates than the previous guy did, and that matters.
And I'll have that in my takeaways too. My first takeaway is passion, fire, energy, and winning football are words that have been hammered into these players' heads throughout spring. We heard, I talked to numerous players in post-game pressers. Cash Jones, Raylan Wilson, CJ Allen all had the passion, fire, energy, talked about playing winning football. Kirby Smart has said it multiple times. He went on a big spiel about how that's what he paid for, has alluded to winning football a lot. I think these are the 4 words that they've really, really, really hammered home this year.
Kirby did the fire, passion, and energy thing twice.
Yeah.
He did it during a Tuesday press conference when he was asked about House versus NCAA and, hey, what are you willing to pay these kids? He said, I will pay for fire, passion, and energy for the game of football. If you've got fire, passion, and energy, I will pay for that. He doubled down again Saturday after GDay when asked about Nico Iamaleava. Nailed it. When he was asked about Nico, he said it again. I'm investing in fire, passion, and energy. If you've got that and you want to play for the University of Georgia, we'll find a way to get you here.
I believe he said it at the press conference I went to.
Yeah.
Next one I have, and this isn't really something I learned, was just reminded of, the fans are going to create the narrative that they want. There were a lot of stories come around that this player needs to start, we need to do this, we're going to lose so-and-so if we do this. It's just an unfortunate reality of being in a college football fan base, but it's one that I'm always reminded of. Number 3, the quarterback battle seems like it's still pretty open. I felt like we walked away Saturday. Everyone had a really good day. Everyone had some bad moments. There wasn't anything that made me go, oh, they look like they got the job here. Oh, like, look at that. They look like they played
corner.
Yeah.
I keep thinking he says quarterback,
too. I was about to stop him.
Cornerback.
Cornerback. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Still very open.
The guys that cover the wide receivers.
Yeah.
So I felt like
there we go.
I felt like that was the CBs. How about that?
The Carson Becks?
No, not that.
He played corner now?
Fourth takeaway. The young tight ends still have some room to grow. I think we saw this especially on Saturday. Lyce Williams had a drop. There were a couple of moments where it's like, they seem like they're still green. Understandably so. Not everyone's going to be Brock Bowers at freshman year.
You can say it about Jaden Riddell.
Yeah, Jaden Riddell looks pretty stiff with the ball in his hand.
Yeah, stiff entirely. He's a stiff athlete.
Doesn't surprise me
can run.
the way that he's built.
But man, he can run.
He can run. He can run. And my fifth takeaway, and it's something that we've all kind of nabbed at and hit it on, it's about Gunnar Stockton. You talk about how Gunnar Stockton's clearly the guy. You talk about how Gunnar Stockton is clearly is a quintessential Georgia quarterback. I noticed this, and it wasn't something I realized was missing from last year per se, but this team is bought around Gunnar Stockton. The roster loves Gunnar Stockton. The coaching staff loves Gunnar Stockton. And I'm not going to say that they didn't love Carson Beck last year and they didn't like him and all these things. I don't want to throw him under the bus. But it's very obvious from this year opposed to last year how much more they're talking about, man, this team rallies around the quarterback. This team believes in the quarterback. This coaching staff loves the quarterback. You did not hear that as much coming from last year with Carson Beck. And maybe that's just the way things are. Maybe it's because Carson had already been a starter this year. He had already pretty much proven himself in 2023. But I feel like more so than ever, we have talked about, even as much since the Stetson Bennett era in 2021, when people were like, no, the team loves this guy. We're hearing that about Gunnar Stockton.
Everything that I've heard about last year, and I think I've said this on this network this offseason, it wasn't that his teammates didn't like Carson. It wasn't that. I think it was more so that after first year of starting, the second year of Carson at Georgia as a starter was very much so, I'm going to show up when I need to show up. I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to leave. There was no, I'm going to get dinner with the boys. There was no, hey, let's go walk over to the baseball game and hang out with the boys. There was no, hey, it's a Friday night event on a bye week. All the boys are together. I don't know if there was any of that. Matter of fact, I can almost guarantee you there was none of that going on. In fact, I've got it on good authority, and you've got it on good authority, that when there was downtime last year, private jets were getting taken to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't getting spent staying in Athens with the homies.
No.
It was, I'm going to go see my girlfriend, and I'm going to enjoy this week off. There wasn't no, I'm going to sit and grind with the homies.
No.
And college football is about grinding with the homies, if you don't know. That's what it's all about. And if you don't have that elevation of the people around you, then nowadays in college football, you're not going to be more talented than everybody. All right, so you're not just going to be able to line up, roll the football out anymore. There's going to have to be a connected aspect of your football team. There's going to have to be fire. There's going to have to be passion. There's going to have to be energy about your football team.
Call back.
And I think the catalyst of that, somebody who has tremendous fire, somebody who plays with tremendous passion, and someone who has tremendous energy is your quarterback this year. Everyone can look to him and they could say, that's what I want a Georgia Bulldog to be. And that means something in college football.
I think it fits too of what your head coach embodies as well. So when someone is reciprocating what Kirby Smart is, that plays into the rest of the team as well. Well, Kirby Smart is not a guy that I'm here when I have to be, but I'm leaving when I don't need to be here. Like, that's not what this program was built off of.
I'm going to end it with 5 players that I'm buying stock in. I know I gave you option to do this for everybody, but I'm going to end it real quick. Number 1, buy all the Quintavious Johnson stock you can. If there's any available, continue to buy it. I'm buying Zacoby White stock. I bought it out of high school. I'm going to double down now. I'm buying Ethan Barber stock, or as they say, Barber. I'm buying Ethan Barber stock, okay? I think he's a tremendous professional. I think he's got great hands. I think he's competitive, okay? He plays with tremendous fire, passion, and energy. Xavier McLeod, for me, is a must-have. Got to play big-time minutes this year for the University of Georgia, big-time snaps. And number 5, this is a guy I didn't necessarily expect to love because I'm not big on reclass football players. I think when you reclass, we're jumping a level that we shouldn't be jumping already, going from high school to college, and then we add on to that, we're going to do it a year early. That scares me at any position, especially corner. But Dominic Kelly looks like a guy. All right, whereas number 24, he's a freshman from IMG Academy. He reclassed out of 2026 into 2025. And the best thing about him, he's bow-legged.
Ooh.
Bow-legged, really polished. I think he's already like corner 5 for them right now. That's pretty impressive as a 17-year-old freshman. So there you go. Those are my stocks I'm buying. I'm also buying stock in this here network. If you haven't already bought stock via a subscription button, I don't know what the hell you're doing. We'd appreciate you for doing that now. All right, if you haven't hit the like button on this video, please go ahead and do that now. We will see you tomorrow night live on this network for another bang-up loaded show. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, it is readily available, however, wherever you get your podcast now that the boy Jay Will's back in town. Appreciate y'all for being here. Hit that thumbs up